Welcome back to Uncharted X. This is Ben. I hope everybody out there is doing well. I've got a video for you today. This is a sit-down podcast discussion with Kyle and Russ Allen from the Brothers of the Serpent Podcast, and we were reviewing our learnings and some of our new observations from our last trip to Egypt, which was held earlier this year in 2024. It's not just us sitting down and talking. I've actually taken quite a bit of time to spice this one up with a whole bunch of footage and images from that trip and about the things that we are discussing. I hope you very much enjoy it. If you are interested in visiting Egypt with us, we're just about to release information on our next Special Permissions tour, which will feature Kyle and Russ, myself, and of course Yusuf. And we're planning on holding this one in March of 2025. It'll be loaded with special permissions, all of the access into sites that you normally can't get into as a tourist, including on this one, we're going to get into the Black Pyramid at Dashur, which is something I'm particularly excited about because I've never been in there or really even been up close to it. So I'm looking forward to that. Supporters of Uncharted X or Brothers of the Serpent Podcast will get early access to register for this trip. That includes Patreon, YouTube channel memberships, Subscribe Star, as well as locals. Otherwise, please stay tuned to our social media for updates when this tour comes out. After that tour, we're both staying on in Egypt in order to speak at the upcoming Metaphysical Egypt conference, which is held in Giza, April 4th to 9th. And we're there alongside a bunch of other really great speakers. And this conference, which will be in Egypt, also features day trips to different sites and museums as part of the deal. If March next year doesn't work for you, I want to let you know I'll also be there in Egypt in December this year, 2024, with Yusuf on his Primordial Egypt tour. Registrations for that trip are currently open, and all of the details are in the link below in the description. I hope you really enjoy this discussion because I certainly did. This video is, as usual, also brought to you by my amazing supporter community. Thank you to everybody who chooses to support Uncharted X and the value for value model, which is the model I use for support. If you're interested in supporting Uncharted X via the value for value model, all of the details are on my website at unchartedx.com/support. On with the podcast.
Back in Texas after 6 weeks in Egypt and then 2 weeks sick. So I had a pretty bad lingering cough from, I don't know, it would have started in the first time we went to...
We've been back for 2 weeks already?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's like I picked up the cough. It started in, which it usually does. The other times we've gone there, I start coughing in Luxor. And then it lasts up into Aswan. And then we went to the Fayoum and it got worse. And then we went back to Cairo and it started to get better. And then we went back to Luxor and it came back.
Mm-hmm.
And and then it got worse and worse. And then we flew back here and then I picked up all the pollen and everything that's happening here for spring and it got worse again and it got really bad. So it's finally calming down. Everything's settling back in. Kyle's back at work. I'm sort of back at work. I've done some work. We did some... What did we do? We did some racking.
Yeah.
But 6 weeks in Egypt. Did we learn anything? Did we find any answers to any mysteries?
44 days. It was
44 days.
Yeah, a long time.
Hey.
We learned some stuff.
Oh yeah, and Ben's here with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
I've been waiting. He's probably been waiting for me to mention that. Yeah,
Kinda
sorry,
was.
Ben is joining us. Sorry about that. I'm out of practice.
All right.
How was your return, Ben?
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Not much. I was in the same position. I was a little worn out. Probably needed a bit of downtime more than anything else, just to not be moving constantly for a few days. I was a little ill, just the usual exhaustion. I mean, I was tired. I at the end of that tour, I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it was a fantastic trip, I'd say this. We went from deserts to oceans. We did scuba diving. We were at the Red Sea with pyramids, climbing around. And it's we don't set a super hectic pace, but it's we're there to see stuff on these trips, and every day involves bus rides, or we're in jeeps and boats and planes. Yep. And I mean, I was kind of counting down the flights by the end of the tour on how many flights it'd take to get back home. And then and being a bit of a homebody anyway, I was just I was a little ill for a couple of days, but yeah, I think sleep ultimately fixed that. But yeah, I'm just found myself to be just terribly behind on everything else. Like you take out 6 weeks, and it's just like, man, I've got a lot of stuff to catch up on.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the scuba diving was awesome.
Epic.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. 80 feet.
Yeah, you boys.
We're not supposed to go that far.
Busted through the limits. It's great.
Little below the floor of our open water certification there, but it was amazing.
There were no police down there.
Yeah, turned out
We did not get busted.
You were fine.
there was no one to stop us.
It's fine.
There was one time when our guide like grabbed Laura and just like pulls her up,
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
kept going
sinking. Yeah, it's like
And we're on a wall. We're on this beautiful wall dive in the Red Sea.
oh my God, yeah.
And it kept going. But it was cool. And you were right. It's open. I think, your open water is 18 meters, and then advanced is 30 meters. And then there's a deep dive at 40 meters, which is narc territory.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Yeah, I think we got, was it 80 feet? I guess 26, 27 meters, I think, was the deepest dive on.
My spiffy, fancy new dive watch said 81 feet was my max depth. I think Laura was below me when I was down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, it's for anyone who hasn't done that kind of diving, you don't even realize. I can see how you can easily go too far if you're not really paying attention. Because, we're just going down, and I'm looking at the fish and the walls and just how amazing it is. And then I look, my watch starts,
beep, beep,
yeah,
beep, beep.
my watch starts tapping me. It's like, bzz, bzz. And I look, oh man, all the numbers are red. It's telling me I'm too deep.
Yeah, wall dives are tricky. I've done a bunch of them. You do have to watch your depth because it is easy to just sort of diagonally just drift down, and then you find yourself, I'm like, damn, I'm at 35 meters. I shouldn't be here. And it's fine. You have to just take it easy going back up, but it limits your bottom time is the main thing.
Yeah.
The deeper you go, most, recreational diving those tables are very safe. They're built around all sorts of different physiologies, and it's mostly about how it's all no decompression diving. So it's all about how slowly you ascend back up and you do all that safely. It's fine to go down deep, but all it does is you just use more air and you shorten up your dive. So I've done a lot of diving, and over the years, I love sort of 15, 16 meters is fantastic because you can be there for an hour, and you see all the stuff. So
I can't be there for an hour. Not on a
Russ is the air hog,
not on
bro.
a 15-liter tank. Our dives were 45 minutes,
50
and
minutes
every time.
Russ was blowing clouds in there, just
I was watching it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were buddy breathing with the instructor. I think every time he'd grab you.
Yep.
I'd run over and look at your thing and I'd tap the thing and say he's at 70 bar, and I was like, oh, come here.
Yeah.
And put you on
We're
the
still
hose.
at 40 feet.
Put you on the hose for a few minutes. Just extend it out. Yeah. No, it was good. It worked out. Yeah, that stuff all comes. It's all.
Need a bigger tank.
We had the big tanks in the
Shorter
end.
dive. Yeah, I know. No, those weren't the big tanks.
There were
Come
bigger
on.
tanks. I'm sure they're
Be
bigger
an
tanks.
18 or a 20.
We'll just get you two. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
It was incredible, man. The boat, like we rented the boat, and I was expecting like a little speedboat or whatever,
Yeah.
and it was this huge boat.
Yeah.
And we went to the dock, and there's all these people crowding onto these boats, and we had our own. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, how did this happen?
It's like
This
a
is cool.
triple decker boat. It had 3 levels. Like, was it 3 or 2? And then
it was 3.
3 if you count the engine room, I guess. But yeah, it was very cool. But you could have put 60, 70 people on this boat. I don't know, 50 people maybe. But we had, 10.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah.
And so that's the plan for the next one. I think we enjoyed it so much that I think the next and Yusuf loves it too. He keeps talking about getting certified. He did do the intro to scuba dive, so he did a little bit of that. He's just where they put you on and operate the gear for you and take you down whatever 5 or 7 meters and float around. But that's the plan for the next one, is to try and do an extension for people that are interested in getting certified. We can you can get certified in the Red Sea, and it'd be a really great way, I think, to end a 2-week trip in Egypt would be to let's go and spend 5 or 6 days on the Red Sea, which is just beautiful, chill. You don't have to dive or do anything, but it's just a beach, snorkel, coral. And for people that want to dive, and they want to, even if they already are certified, if they want to get certified, we can make that part of it, get certified, and at the end we all go out on a boat, private charter on a boat, we all go dive and snorkel together. It's a fantastic day out, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. And then Yeah, because in the future, I'd love to. I do. This is why I've been at you guys for years to get you certified, because I got plans. I think we can. There's so many interesting spots around the world to dive, as it relates to just megalithic ruins and stuff. Apart, just diving itself is cool, but Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, all these places. There's a lot of these places to go and dive on. Nan Madol, all these other things. I think would be really interesting. Graham Hancock, as you know, spent years and years doing that, investigating these things underwater. I think it's a huge part of this. So that's the plan.
Yeah. What was it? The last day in Aswan on the Felucca ride, Ben and I sat up on the top deck on the couch on top of the boat. We didn't get off the boat the whole time. We went to the beach.
Yep.
We sat on the boat and we discussed future plans.
We did.
And like, where are we going to dive? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to go? We looked at maps. We're like, yes, we can circle around here. So we do have plans for that. It's going to be awesome. And yeah, it would be cool if we take people to Egypt, and then some of them want to do this extension and they get their certifications.
Yep.
And then we go on some dives there in Egypt, and then those people might want to go with us to this like extended dive tour.
Yeah. It's my plan to turn this whole thing into basically a dive tour operation, because diving's way more fun. I mean, it's not way more fun, but it's fun.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
is.
we can actually train the audience for people that want to come on these tours, because it'd be a lot of fun, and it'd be fun to take people to some of these spots, man. I think you could mix it with regular diving, because there's just in those parts of the world, I mean, there's just incredible diving everywhere. But South China Sea, the equatorial Southeast Asia area is full of amazing diving. I spent years doing that when I lived in Singapore, and that would be fun.
So what are some of the new stuff that's happening there? Really interesting. Like, for example, at Abu Sir and Abu Ghorub, they've been doing some work.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a causeway that comes down, and later we might do some lives and show this, but for now, I'll just describe it, because we all have pictures and videos of this. But there's a series of pyramids there, and they do have causeways, and one of them has a causeway that comes down Abu Sir, and it comes down into the desert, and it kind of vanishes, sort of disappears, like a lot of these causeways do. Like, they've either been dismantled or they're totally buried. But it's noticeable in off a couple of these pyramids. You can see the causeway sort of goes down, it disappears, but then farther out in the desert, there's this hole in the desert where there's grasses, scrubs, and trees growing.
Right.
And at Abu Sir, they have gone into one of these holes where we had previously seen it full of grass and trees and stuff, but they've burned all that up, cleared it out of there, and started digging. And there is some kind of structure there.
Like a valley temple, potentially. It's whatever the structure is at the end of the causeway, it seems like. Yeah, that's really cool, that area, because I've got footage from back in like 2016, and maybe even 2015, where we were bush bashed in that area, like trying to get into those reeds, because we'd heard story, and Yusuf at that time, who I just met in 2015, was telling me, there's blocks in here. There's channeled blocks and there's tube drills, but they're in these blocks, and so you're bush bashing, you can't really get in there. It's just like thick reeds and bush, and you worry about snakes and stuff. And so I've tried to get in there a couple times, and so I was super happy to see, oh man, they've actually cleared this out. And not only that, they've actually excavated, and they've cleared out this area that's like full of granite and basalt and these precision cut blocks and a bunch of brand new tube drill holes that I've never seen, like actually some really good ones that have been preserved beneath the sand or whatever's there. But there's, it's 100% in line with everything else that's at Abu Sir. But yeah, fantastic to see some new work coming up. And yeah, I'd love to. That's one of those future videos I want to make, just looking at some of that new stuff that we saw there. Yeah,
and it's hard to tell exactly what would the structure have looked like, but it seems like from like looking down the causeway away from the pyramid to the right, there was what looks like I don't know what you would call it, architecture, like a porch. It's the exterior part of the temple. Yeah. It has this beautiful section of there's basalt blocks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the floor.
And they and then the
walls too are encased in basalt.
The wall is encased, and it's like beautifully done, with non-standard. They're not square. They have tilted lines, and the blocks are bigger or smaller. in this sort of like classical Cyclopean style.
Yeah, there's like a gateway there too, like a granite gateway, and there's column bases too. So there must have been big columns there because there's big columns at the other end of the causeway. At the single piece granite columns are at the other end of the causeway at Abu Sir, at least at the I think that's Nusra. Is it Nusra or is it the other one? Sahu Ray or something. I think it's. But yeah, I think there must have been a structure with column bases, a roof.
Yep.
A gateway going into it, this sort of typical kind of granite gateway, and that's where we saw some tube drills in the granite blocks that were there.
Yeah.
And it has that same sort of flat basalt floor, and there's all these bits of stone laying all over the place, the typical kind of combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
cool. So the basalt floor is really interesting because it has you can see in the paving stones the fracture pattern of the natural rock.
Yeah.
And in some places, the fracture pattern it looks like it's got an octagonal pattern in there. Like it kind of looks like a turtle shell, but it looks like it would have been columnar basalt if it would have crystallized in a slightly different, like it was close to becoming columnar basalt, but it didn't quite. But the fracture pattern is still there of this octagonal pattern in some of the blocks. And then the other ones have these strange veins of what look like shattered basalt strewn through them in almost a liquid pathway, or like it's hard to describe, but I've got all these pictures of it. But you can see what it looks like. There were fractures in the rock, so there's a natural fracture pattern, and then at a later period there was another injection of liquid, like magma, that gets in, exploits the fractures, spreads them apart, and then cools in a different way and leaves a new basaltic material in there, but it's all in pieces. But that material was taken from the quarry and then polished into the floor, to the floor tiles, and then over time, those newer flows have the material has fallen out, and now you see like it looks shattered, like glass.
Yeah,
like it's been exploded. But I think that's just a like an effect that's happened to the basalt itself. But initially when we went there, I thought, what happened to these tiles? I was thinking that this happened after the construction, but I think it must be, it must be part of the rock itself. But I don't know. I'm not a geologist. I have no idea. But that was my idea from seeing it this time.
I was thinking, why would what is the purpose of building a temple at the base of the ramp that you need to slide your stones up to build the pyramid?
Yeah.
Is that just like, this is part of the job? We're going to build this giant ramp up to the pyramid from the valley that floods by the Nile, and then as soon as we're done with construction, we'll build a temple where it floods?
Yeah.
Like, what is the deal with that?
Well, I mean, it's more than that too. It's not just a ram. I mean, that causeway, it's a causeway. It was cased in Tura
I know
limestone.
it's a causeway, but I'm just asking these standard story questions.
Yeah.
Like, They say that the causeway was the ramp that they brought
the blocks up
in on the boats, and then they drag them up that ramp to build the pyramid.
And I mean,
like, there's a temple at the bottom of the causeway.
it's always a temple. It's just nothing else. It couldn't be anything other than a temple. It's always a temple.
Right.
But that's a particular causeway. That one also has channeled blocks running. Like, that's the one I point at that shows there is channel blocks that run all the way underneath this thing, like subfloor infrastructure that we saw a lot of on this tour. In fact, I found a few new blocks of it and a few new examples of it. At Abu Sir, though, there's the end of that causeway that used to be in the dirt before that reedy patch. That's now buried again, but you used to be able to see where that channeled block, there were blocks right at the end of the causeway that went under it, and now that's all covered in sand now. But you would see that, and then there's a few places where it's exposed walking up the causeway. So there's this, this underground infrastructure, particularly, I mean, it's at a lot of these Old Kingdom sites, most of them that are on that the Sun Belt, all of those pyramid sites, you see evidence for these channel blocks on all of those sites. But at Abu Sir, it's still pretty intact. Like, they were, in fact, that might have been the reason they tore up the big area in front of the pyramid so much, is to get it, if there were copper pipes in those or something, some sort of infrastructure. Yusuf thinks they might have actually been ripping up the floor to get at the copper, because you still see the channel blocks that are running all under this big square, this big sort of, the big basically the pavement, what was beneath the floor of this big structure that sat in front of the pyramid. You know, you've got these channeled blocks in the ground, and they run all over the place under the ground under there, and there's Y joins, and they, you know, they have all this complex
Can't be a rope
arrangement.
guide.
Huh?
Yeah, not a rope
The
guide.
rope guide.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You know.
Kind of, it's like, what? Like, no. There's Y. Like, you got a rope that Ys. Like it splits.
Yeah, I don't think it's a rope guide. No.
And then there's bowls, to collect the rope. I don't
That's
know.
right. There's bowls at the end of it, right? And yeah, so some of this stuff, we see the quartzite bowls that these things exit into, which are hard to make out of a tough type of stone. There's even one of the angles when you go over to the other courtyard at Abu Sir, it actually there's a channel block that comes out and it points directly at the pyramid. Like, it's whether or not it went into the pyramid, I don't know, but it's sort of, that's where the blocks stop. But who knows what was there before that? It's the rope guide theory. I think Robert Temple came up with that primarily as trying to explain the channeled block that's in the Sphinx Temple at Giza, that big granite block that seems to run into a shaft that goes nowhere.
That one could be a rope guide.
That one, yeah, but that one, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me
joking.
at all.
Yeah.
It's just, it goes under the wall and into it comes out of the ground in the temple and then goes beneath the exterior wall of the temple and into
the bedrock.
There's like an alleyway there that's basically a small space that's between the outer wall of the temple and the bedrock cutout that they put the temple in.
Yeah, the enclosure wall.
Yeah, an enclosure wall. And this channeled block set goes
Dives
beneath.
into it.
Yeah, and then just dives into the bedrock there. It goes down again. And
It's bizarre.
It just doesn't make any sense.
And we got in there for the first time too. We
What's
got into
down
that
there?
alleyway. Sorry, Colin.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah.
About
No, I'm just, what's down there? I mean, they must be going somewhere.
Well, and you've got to get access. Like, there's a channel, like, whether or not, it doesn't matter what you think was the purpose of that channel block. Like, you don't put a block in with a channel, and you have to get something in there. Like, it has to be, it's obviously functional. I don't care if people think it's a sewer or whatever it is. Whatever you think it is, there's something at the other end of that, right? There has to be. So how are you accessing that? Is there just some passage going into that enclosure wall somewhere? There's no obvious. There are doors sort of outside the Sphinx Temple that are closed that go in that direction. It could be underground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many tunnels. I mean, that thing could go down into a tunnel. But I mean,
That's the thing with like so much stuff in Giza and elsewhere in Egypt. There are pits that are not excavated, and they have never, in a lot of cases, been fully excavated.
And certainly none not that you know about. I mean, that's the other problem.
Right.
I mean, there's literally hundreds of these doors. Just you have the giant pits. These things go down 100 feet or whatever, at least that you can see, and they're not fully excavated. They're very regular and very well cut. They've got grates over them. There's no real documentation on them. And then if you walk around, you guys spent a day, one of those days off we had, spent hours walking around the plateau, and you can literally find 100 or more of these doors that have been sealed up. And in some cases they've been sealed up for probably 100 years.
Yeah,
where the sand's 3/4 filled. The bottom, it's the sand's up to 3/4 of the door now, but it's just these passages that disappear into the bedrock, into these side walls of quarry cuts and things, and in some cases they've been bricked up, right? They've actually been sealed, fully sealed, cemented over. I mean, it's fascinating to think of, like, well, where's the documentation for this stuff?
Where's the map? Like, how is there not an enormous digital map of the entire site with all of these tunnels and where they all go, or where, what do we know and what do we don't know? Come on.
Well,
this is a video game. I'd be looking for the freaking map.
We did have that one. I guess I don't know if I can tell the story, but we did get into that alleyway, the alleyway that runs beside the Sphinx Temple, which is not. I've never been in there before. To basically look at where this channel block runs under the ground and then into the wall.
Based on what happened to us get in there, I'm not sure anyone's been in there in a long time.
Yeah. So we had permission. So we had a special permission. I'll say this about the groups too. The groups we were with were phenomenal. Like, we already had 6 or 7, special permissions on the trip, which is already more than pretty much anyone else does on Egypt tours. But that wasn't enough. And these guys, both tours, like, we did one at the start, one at the end of that 6 weeks. Both tours signed up for another 3, I think, and we ended up doing 10. 10 total.
Special missions.
Unbelievable. Per tour. Yeah, it was. I couldn't believe it. And Sphinx Temple wasn't on the itinerary, but we went in there. But so we had permission to get in there, and Yeah, so they couldn't find the key. So we we did take an alternative route to getting in there, which
They found a key.
they did. Oh, we did find a key. We found a key to open the door. But yes, yeah, in the shape of a crowbar, I think. But it was
Universal key.
It reminded
universal
me of
key. It was, yeah.
reminded me of the scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where he's in the library.
Yeah,
Right?
panic. Yeah, the copy.
Stamping the books, and he's like, "Bam!" Right when she stamps the book.
It was they're wailing on this thing, and we're all out there going,
Yeah.
we're all like, yeah, in this tank. Anyway, we did get it off there. I remember Yusuf he goes, I have just had a pleasure that few will experience in Egypt.
Yeah.
He was so happy that he got to bust a padlock off.
Yeah, I got to bust the lock off.
But we were there
was
with
awesome.
the inspector, just to be clear. Like, we were there with the inspector who should have had the key, and he's like, stuff it, break it, we'll get another padlock, which then we came back and did it again a month later, and there was a new lock on there, and they had the key.
Yeah. He has the guy has a wad of keys, and he's
does.
like looking through, and most of them are rusted and unidentifiable, and he's like trying to figure out which one opens this rusted, unidentifiable lock.
Let's hope. Raise your arms up to find the key. May he find the key.
And just eventually they broke it off there, and then replaced the lock with a new one, and then we were able to get in easy next time.
But it was funny at the time. We're all like, people were like, what are you guys doing over there? Yeah, never mind. Go.
Yeah. It's like 30 people over there.
Tank.
That was really funny.
Yeah.
Great groups. Both, man.
both groups
Yeah,
were
it
great.
really was. Always is.
Yeah, I just find that alleyway interesting because, of course, they cut the bedrock away. Much like the Sphinx, the Sphinx temple is also cut out of the bedrock, at least the back half of it, and yet the outer wall on the north side is like 12 feet away from the bedrock cut. Like it's strange that in the back of the temple itself is rock cut. There's the walls are made of
Bedrock.
the bedrock.
Yeah.
And yet on that side, on the north side, they didn't make rock. They didn't make the wall out of the bedrock technically. I mean, I guess that could have been the outer wall. But it's just strange. It's just an empty hallway
Yeah.
that has nothing but that channel block section cut into the ground.
Yep.
Maybe there's more under the ground. I don't know, but it's just so strange. It's like, okay, they cut the bedrock down, then they move like 12 feet over and build a wall out of the bedrock blocks that they just cut out of the wall. It's strange. I mean,
It is
so
odd.
much about that temple is an enigma.
Yeah, you're right. I think what you're pointing out is that the part of the temple that's closest to the Sphinx is the bottom part of it is rock cut.
It's rock cut.
It's cut out of the bedrock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
they left walls standing that are just bedrock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then this part where they have obviously also cut it out of the bedrock, they nevertheless stacked blocks to make the exterior wall of the temple
12 feet
12
away from
feet
the wall.
away from a bedrock wall. This is it is very strange. Yeah.
And spending that much time, or as much time as we have going around and looking at the engineering aspects of these buildings and sites, it's clear that they had their reasons. They had a plan. They were masters of their craft. So that's the curious thing about it. Why did they do this? Because already that these were genius builders.
Why?
Yeah.
So it's so strange that would be a feature. I don't know. It's just fascinating to me.
Some of the other stuff when we did our between tour walk in Giza, that was fantastic because Kyle and I have spent a lot of time at various large pieces of land where there's many acres and it's rough and rugged, and if you spend some time out there and walk it instead of just driving down the roads, but you actually get out and you walk the land and you go between the different
Wander it.
you wander it. You go between the different landmarks, you walk up and down the canyons, you check out the hilltops, but you do it on foot. You really get a much better feel for the land itself. And so every time we've gone to Giza, it's been in the context of we drive up there in the bus, we all get out of the bus, we check some things out, we get back on the bus, and then the bus circles around to another place on the plateau, we get back out and we do so. So this time to go out there, We just went in the main entrance, well, the entrance near Yusuf's shop,
The Sphinx.
and just spent all day walking. With no guides, no one telling us what to do, and, well, except for plenty of people try to tell us what to do. we told them to F off.
Yep. You've discovered the secret.
Yeah, there was
tell 'em to F off.
there was just so much amazing stuff, like climbing around, and you realize like there is, well, for one thing, just doing, like I was saying, just walking it, I got a much better feel for the size of the place. Like we actually walked between all the pyramids. We checked out all the satellite pyramids. We went to the edges we went down to Kinkawas, walked through that area. We've been there before, but to walk through this stuff instead of being taken there.
That's a fun area.
But yeah, looking at the satellite pyramids, it's very interesting because both sets, there's two sets of three, one set near the Great Pyramid, and the other set near Menkaure. The first thing I notice is that both sets have this similar aspect where there's one that looks very pyramid-like, and then there's a second one, the one in the middle, that looks more like a mastaba, and then the third one is very destroyed. Both sides have this. It's really strange that there's in such similar conditions.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Those satellite pyramids are fascinating. There's something that I like your point about walking around. I've done the same thing in the past. I didn't go with you guys that time. I was a tired little boy. Stayed at the hotel that day. And I was like,
I told him,
I'm not going to the pyramids. You guys
I told him,
go.
I was like, we're making all the discoveries. He was like, I had a great nap.
I did, yeah. I had a good nap. I'm like, I seen it. I
discovered 4 hours of sleep while you guys were walking.
Yeah, I have done the same. I'm glad you guys did that because I've done the same thing a few times.
Yeah.
And, but just for a minute, those satellite pyramids are interesting because I finally Yusuf's I think been trying to tell me this for a couple of years, and he was pointing out something that I finally tweaked to on this trip, which is that there is very strong evidence for basically Fourth Dynasty recycling going on in the construction of those.
Yes, I've been saying this
of those satellite pyramids. Like those things are made, and it's very clear when you see it. They're made from recycled blocks that they got from somewhere else.
Yeah,
and apparently there's no debate that this is all standard model says they're Fourth Dynasty, like queens and daughters or whatever. Well, the daughters. There's a funny story about the Khufu's daughter, right?
Story,
the daughter story. It's a little. Yeah, we're trying to explain this to some of the girls on tour. What is he saying about this? Well, the story goes that Khufu was broke at the time.
Yeah.
When he was trying to make this pyramid for his daughter. So he decided to rent the daughter out.
Yeah.
And
one stone per suitor.
Yeah, 1 stone per suitor. So she was a busy girl, and that's how we built the pyramid. And Yusuf always then picks up a small rock and goes, "How much do I get? What do I get for this stone?" Makes a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a hilarious story.
It is a funny story, but yeah, it depends on your perspective, I guess.
Is that actual Egyptian myth?
I don't know where it comes from. It's some sort of myth from time. It is a story that comes down from. I don't know where it comes from. I've not really done the research. I can't imagine it's particularly accurate, but that is some sort of rumor, just a dirty rumor.
Yes, right.
Fake news, But yeah, those things are very recycled.
Recycled, yeah. That's really cool.
There's quarry mark, like literally you see the shapes, and they're stones that have finished surfaces, and in fact they may have come off some other structure.
Yeah.
That then these finished surfaces have got quarry marks on them, where they were basically painting like fix this, like chip this off, like straighten this out and make it into that pyramid casing stone on the outside, because it's that Tura limestone, but it's come from somewhere else. And then you can see where they've done it. And then there's unfinished parts of it, and then there's blocks where they never actually started to touch them, and it's not in that pyramid shape. It's really interesting. I'm like, yeah, they were definitely pulling stone from somewhere else to make these things.
But when you go to the satellite pyramids of Menkaure, they have the exact same granite casing stones.
Right.
They look exactly the same as the ones on Menkaure. So it's like, the limestone casing from the Great Pyramid or whatever. They've also got Tura on the satellite pyramids, and then the granite casing on Menkaure. Satellites also have.
Did you guys go in there? You guys been in that satellite pyramid at Menkaure?
Didn't go inside. No.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
it's well
somebody
made
was
inside.
offering to take us in there.
Right.
But I mean, he was basically trying to tell us there's a statue or something, and we could go in. Right.
I don't remember.
But it also seemed at first like he was telling us not to be where we were, and we
I
kept
was doing
telling
my
him
best to ignore
Yeah.
everyone talking
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the risk. It's tough to do when you're out there and you don't have an Egyptian with you. You will definitely get a lot of attention from the vendors and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, so our general policy is just to try to ignore everybody who's yelling at us. Yeah.
That's the right way to do it. Yeah.
Yep. But this guy had a whistle, so he was trying to be he was trying to act like he was. Yeah, he kept like blowing this whistle at us, and we're like, "What? Are we doing something wrong or whatever?" But then it turned out he wanted to for us to pay for him to take a photo.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to take us into some spot or whatever. We're like, "Dude, get out of here with your freaking whistle."
Yeah.
Stop acting like a freaking lifeguard.
Yeah. Yeah, they do it. I mean, a lot of people pretend to be in some sort of position of authority, and they're not. It's just they prey on that Western instinct to, you're not in your own culture, so if someone tells you to do something, you're more likely to pay attention. I think that gets leveraged quite heavily to the visitors to the plateau.
Yep. Well, there's more to say on Giza, but let's take a break.
Yeah.
Right?
Tons.
All right.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the Serpent Podcast. Cheers to you all. Good to be back.
Cheers.
It was great to be there, but it's also great to be back, and good to be back in the studio doing a podcast. Great to have Ben on, as usual, or a swapcast, however you want to describe it.
Yep. Maybe he will actually publish another podcast after we do this.
Put this on your podcast.
Probably going to happen. Yeah. I do need to make some more podcasts. That's true.
Yeah, I was so excited. A new Uncharted X podcast had come out.
I think I
You
did.
need to
2
invite me on.
months ago.
You need to invite me on. I got hot takes.
Yeah. Russ's turn next. I don't know.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
my
good.
turn.
That was fun.
I need part 2.
We'll definitely do part 2 as well. I think we should do it.
So the thing that really struck me this time in Egypt was this idea of the primordial mound. I know I talked about it a lot while we were there, but a little window into that idea, I think, was the first time we went with you in 2022?
21.
21 was the Kent Kawas pyramid on the plateau.
Yep.
Now that primordial mound is exposed.
Yep.
Now you can see they've literally shaped the bedrock into this somewhat angular shape, and then they've stacked, there's a bunch of blocks stacked on top of it, but you can see the depressions on the sides where they had kind of fit other blocks to it to make what I would assume would have been a pyramid shape. And so that was kind of a window into this idea of the primordial mound, this natural bedrock that exists that they didn't remove. So then we went to the mountaintop pyramid. I keep forgetting the name of it.
Abu
Rawash. Fascinating. And it's very similar to Kent Kawas, but huge, much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of see that pyramid as the same thing. Like what we're looking at there is the primordial mound.
Yeah.
That's at the top of this mountain. And you can see how they sort of stair-step cut it. They shaped the bedrock. And the bedrock itself is it's not good. I wouldn't consider it great structural material.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different layers of limestone, some of which are like a really loose conglomerate. Some are highly fractured chert.
Yep.
It's not very well solidified. It's full of fractures. So you could just see it's just falling out of there. There's some chalk layers, really soft stone. And there's a lot of what's the crystal? The calcite crystals.
Yep.
And big layers of it too. And you get up there and the first thing I did when we got there the first time was I just started walking around it slowly and looking at how they literally at the bottom of it, they're fitting granite casing stones up against the bedrock.
Yeah.
So like that bedrock, that was the outside of the pyramid. And of course, as you go up, you can follow the angle. It's truncated, like the bedrock's cut off. It's this huge flat area up there if you climb up on top of the bedrock. you can walk around this just giant. So they flattened the top of it, and then there's just massive limestone blocks laying around up there that must have been part of the core masonry. So they literally built like a hat. You know what I'm saying? The pyramid it's pyramid shaped, and then it's sort of it's like this hat that fits on this piece of bedrock that they shape.
Well, and there's
also
a giant hole in the bedrock.
I was going to say, there's a giant big excavation.
Well, that's the thing. The way I look at that now is like, okay, this is how they're preparing for the internal subterranean chamber and possibly upper chambers, and then they've made this huge, like a hallway into the center of this primordial mound.
Yeah.
That is angled down like it would have been the descending passageway, and of course the rock has fallen off the walls, and the ground's all rubble, and so you can imagine, like, I would like to see Kent Kawa's descending passageway again, because I think it was lined with granite.
Yeah.
I think the descending passageway of Kent Kawa's was also cut into the bedrock, but of course they lined it. There's these huge granite blocks laying in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just got me thinking, like, this is, you cut this huge pit into the primordial mound, then you cut this long hallway down to the bottom of the pit, then you case all that stuff in stone. You can make your tunnels, you can make ascending passageways in that thing. I mean, you think about it. You can go halfway down that descending passageway and then start a tunnel upwards as you're filling that masonry, and you could have multiple rooms in that place.
Yeah,
sure.
So
I was going to say, I think you're right. I mean, I think that was you go there and it looks like this giant. Some people think, oh, this was an observatory or something. It's because it's so open to the sky. Like you're in this huge, big, wide descending passage, and then there's big space in the bottom. But I think there's plenty of evidence that suggests that's not what it was originally. In that it was probably cased and built, had a roof, and it probably had chambers and structures above it, because it's obvious that the gap at the top was spanned, but you couldn't just span that thing with stone beams and expect to sit a pyramid on top of it. Like the weight of that, you have to build that support up from below. So there's probably, smaller chambers, and then it could have been multiple chambers all the way up into the structure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And from a construction standpoint, this is genius, because you think it's a lot of work to cut that huge channel down in there and then cut this giant pit. But if you started from the ground surface, you would have to quarry all the blocks somewhere.
Yeah.
So you'd be cutting way more.
Yeah.
In this fashion, you're utilizing the ground for almost a third of the pyramid's height, perhaps. The bedrock itself. And all you're having to do is cut this channel and this pit, and then you can fill that in with the really nice,
some of those
high
are still
quality
in there.
stone.
There were a few really high quality ones.
High quality blocks laying down on the bottom. Some fitted up against the wall.
And there's granite too. I mean, a lot of it was not just limestone.
Yeah, so that was really interesting, and it was just I just really landed it for me, the idea of primordial, because I was, it's this primordial mound. I'm kind of imagining, you see the diagrams of the Great Pyramid, and it's this little mound. It's just like no. I mean, I would be willing to bet inside the Great Pyramid there could be a
shaped bedrock,
gigantic shape
plug.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say that was something I learned too, and from you guys looking at that, because it's not just the center of these things either. It's these pyramids all have bedrock features too, like we were talking about the Sphinx temple, where it's got walls made from bedrock. I mean, I've talked about it and done videos on the middle pyramid, or the Khafra pyramid, having that, there's the southwestern corner, there's like 7 courses of it are carved directly from the bedrock, and it folds in. But it's probably a lesser known fact that not to the same extent, but you also have big bedrock features that serve to lock in the Great Pyramid as well. So it's not just this primordial man in the center. There's these bedrock blocks in it around the corners, and you guys are pointing out, I think, what was that corner?
That was the thing that blew my mind.
Corner?
The northeast corner of the Great Pyramid. That was the part that blew my mind. I was like, it's flint. It's literally like
a massive flint nodule.
Humongous flint nodule, and it's got this natural, like, weird winding cave that goes in there. I think in the more I observed it, it looks like it may have been a massive fossil bed, like just a huge collection of maybe all these different shells. There's like the big spiral ones
Yep.
that are in there, and I know some of those are out in the limestone bedrock as well. But it looks like it possibly was some kind of big, maybe a coral feature full of all these shells or whatever. And it just, I mean, it's flint.
Yeah, it's
But it's like
it's
knob,
hard stuff.
got all these knobs and weird shapes in it.
but shaped into, you know, basically that stepped course shape of the pyramid, and also not ever intended to be exposed to the outside, because the casing stones are all gone, and then, like, you know, you got another 4 or 5 or 6 feet of stones that are outside of this, but they actually, this is so much more effort to, like, lock that structure in or something. Like it's and you see it. There's other blocks around there too that are bedrock, like individual blocks that are like, okay, this is like a key that then this serves to kind of lock that structure. I mean, not like it's going anywhere, but they I don't know, man. I wonder why they did this. Like, what I mean, is it not easier from a planning and logistics perspective, just to, like, all right, we're going to cut this thing flat, or at least we're just going to level off, and we're just going to plan this with blocks. But no, we're going to shape these particular areas on each side of it that are just going to be from bedrock that just are still attached to the ground. Then we can build the structure around them.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I'm sorry, but when people say, like, oh, you know, they flattened the bedrock and the whole thing is like flat to within, you know, a quarter of an inch or whatever over all this space, and it's like, well, no, actually,
They didn't.
They just cut. Like, if you think of that northeast corner, there's like, we're gonna make this cut here out of the bedrock, and then we're gonna fit a stone to case it, and that stone, where it sits, is gonna be within a quarter inch flat of the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
like, dude,
Yeah,
nuts.
I mean, it is nuts.
And you can see that. I just love the idea that, you know, the foreman out there, and he's looking at the architect, and he's like, why are we leaving this thing of flint? And the guy's like, so it doesn't move.
He's like, well, it's
He's
6
like-
million tons.
Move?
Yeah, this is the other thing that comes up to
Who's
me.
going to
man.
steal it?
The Sphinx Temple drove this home too. That they have to be cutting the bedrock at the same time that they're casing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came to this conclusion from really just like obsessing over these 2 hallways in the Sphinx Temple, and I'm just like, there's no way the bedrock cutting guy can come in here and just decide to leave these random angles sticking out of what otherwise would have been a straight hallway, just leave like a big chunk sticking out of the wall. He can't make those decisions without the stones casing it, being there, ready, being prepped, and being put in as it's being cut.
Yeah. I mean, there's
So
bedrock nubs in that place. Like, they literally do this in the floor,
Yeah.
in like a smaller version of what the pyramid is, but
Yeah.
they're sticking
Yeah,
up
if you-
out of the floor. Like,
If you
Yeah.
think of an architect designing it on paper, he doesn't know what's under the bedrock.
yeah, he doesn't care.
So the architect designs it, then the limestone cutting crew comes in. They would just cut it to match the design. But no, that's not what was happening. Somebody was cutting as the building was being built at the same time. It's like,
Yeah.
so that's what I was going back to, this chunk in the corner of the Great Pyramid.
But, well, you know, we can go a little speculative here and say maybe they did know what was in the limestone before they cut it out.
Oh, like this, yeah. They just were like, yeah, this one spot, leave that nub.
Yeah,
1 foot or
there's a
1 foot diameter.
There's a dense. There's a there's a dense collection of flint right here. We're gonna leave this as part of the corner. It's 6 meters down.
Yeah, that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like these big nub protrusions on the floor of the. I mean, come on, they're the same as the rest of the limestone. It's like somebody's making that decision because they have the tile.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we'll cut a hole in this tile because it's already got this crack or whatever.
It makes it so much more. I mean, you can already tell from the shape and size of the stones that it's all pretty custom, right? It's not exactly like you're pumping bricks out and making it, but that's it speaks volumes to the planning and design that had to go into this, and maybe a bit of the ability for them to I don't want to say that they do it on the fly, because I don't think you can do this stuff on the fly, but it feels like they know, you know, they just have these options on what direction to go. I mean, there must be a requirement for this. Like, that's the other part. Like, there has to be a a specification from whoever wants this thing to say, because this isn't the easiest way to do it. I mean, none of this is the easiest way to do it, but this is even an even more ridiculously difficult way to do it, right? There has to be a reason for it, is one of the other things. It's like, why? Why wouldn't you at the Sphinx Temple just make that flat bedrock and stick your floor tiles down? That's got to be easier than leaving an odd assortment of bedrock nubs that poke up that now you have to modify all your floor tiles and design everything around it to make sure it fits. And
not just nubs, but bedrock pits.
Yeah,
You're filling the pits.
Yeah.
I think that I do think that there's a lot of stuff being done on the fly, but I think the geometrical design is in the mind of the builders, right? Like you set the geometrical design. This is the geometry, and this is the level of precision. Obviously the design can be very precise, and then the builders are, even though they're making decisions on the fly using the natural medium that they're working in, they're always working to that geometrical design specification. That's kind of the way I think about it. And then, of course, there's these tolerances, which is what we've talked about in the unfinished presentation, which is like you've got all this excess material. You're just trying to make sure that it surpasses the lowest tolerance of...
and then you remove material.
Yeah. So as long as it follows that, you're good to go.
And you come back and smooth it all out later.
Come back and flatten the casing stones on the inside of the Sphinx Temple after it's done.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, like you were pointing out in the King's Chamber, that was not what they did.
Yeah.
They cut everything beforehand and stacked it precisely.
Yeah.
There's no blocks going around corners.
King's Chamber's a bit different, isn't it? It's just like perfectly well made. And designed and plopped down.
It's the outsides of the King's Chamber that are flattened and softened in place. Like the above parts where you can see it in the pictures of the relieving chambers. They were scooping material out, removing material there, and then above that, it's flattened probably previously, and then above that, there's more scoops and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wonder what the King's Chamber looks like on the outside of the blocks.
That would, I think you're probably rough. Man, I'd love to get into that Cavillier's chamber because you might actually be able to see
I think
some of
we've
those
seen
blocks.
I think we've seen roughly what it looks like, and that would be in
the
southern shaft
and at the bottom of the
step pyramid.
The step pyramid.
Yeah, that's what the outside of the King's Chamber looks like.
And those both, like, again, like the southern shaft, I'm just like, this is pyramid prep, like right here. I mean, it's a shaft, and then they just didn't have the angle. Actually, they may have. I have some video of it. It looks like it was.
Well, the southern shaft, people won't know what that is. Like, that's another. I mean, that was also a first for me on this trip, getting in there. I've been wanting to get in there for some time because this is like almost like a sister structure to what's beneath the step pyramid. It's another giant. It's like a replica almost. It's the same damn thing. It's another giant shaft. Like, if you think about what's beneath the step pyramid, you've got like an 80, 90 foot deep shaft that's 45 feet wide or wherever it is, and at the bottom you've got a 32-piece granite box that's like a built chamber, more or less. And then in the southern shaft, you have a giant shaft. It's outside the pyramid. It's outside the courtyard of the pyramid. It's a giant shaft. It's 80, 900 feet deep. It's 45 feet wide. And at the bottom of that, you've got a 32-piece granite box that's basically an enclosure. Or a chamber. I mean, it's how many bloody burials does Giza need? It's just up there with Snefru and all his pyramids. It's like there's another shaft just like it out near Wanisa's pyramid.
Yeah. So doesn't this kind of remind you of the test passages near the Great Pyramid?
But you tested it all the way to building a whole box.
I have to freaking see.
I know they did a box. You're right. I mean, but it's like there is a similar thing to this, right? There's a place where there's like a model of the stuff in the Great Pyramid, or at least parts of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all that there is something to this design. Like I've said this before, but when you go into the King's Chamber, you just happen to go inside the box. Like everybody's like, "Oh, I want to get in the box." In the King's Chamber, you're already in the box.
You're in the box.
You're in the big one.
You're in the big box. Yeah, that's right.
It's because when you go to other ones, it's like you get down there or up there, or wherever you're going to this chamber, and there's a box. There's this granite box.
Yeah.
The Great Pyramid And I guess there's maybe is there another granite chamber you go into in another pyramid? I
Many
can't
of
remember.
them. Yeah, I mean the third pyramid, Kara pyramid, Lahoon pyramid,
right.
they're all granite boxes. They're all
You
granite
go
rooms.
inside. I mean, just the one that you walk into it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a
Yeah.
granite room.
Yeah.
So it's like those. I feel like the step pyramid and the southern shaft are weird because you actually come to the outside
of the granite box.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the tunnel should actually go in.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be out in this.
Outside around it. Yeah.
This is not supposed to be seen.
It feels to me like there's some.
We were cased.
Yeah. And well, there's a whole other that other shaft that's near Winisa's pyramid that you look down in. That's the same depth, same size. Oh, I mean, we don't know how deep it is because it's not buried, but it looks like there's a giant box down there as well. Like you see the lid of something down there. And it just to me, I feel like at that whole area, and I go, well, this is the old stuff, right? And then they just decided, well, we'll build a pyramid over this one over here because maybe there's other tunnels and other things going off from that one. We don't know if there's other pyramids or other tunnels and things going off from the other shafts, but there's miles of tunnels beneath Saqqara. But just the fact it's a carbon copy of what's beneath the step pyramid is just insane.
Yeah, and the question is which one is the copy?
Well, yeah, I just think they're both. Yeah, I mean, my brain goes to like, well, these are functional.
old.
They're older. They were doing something, and then later on, it's like because I firmly am in the camp of like, yeah, the step pyramid probably was the first pyramid the dynastic Egyptians made. I think they made it. It's a tremendous effort, like 400,000 tons or something, and it's done with smaller stones. You can look at it and see it, but I think it was, I'm completely on board with that. But I think they built it over the top of a pre-existing hole in the ground.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking of about this, like how there's the small version or whatever, and then next to it there's a larger version, and then it kind of reminded me of the of like what we do with particle accelerators. They're all connected to each other. Like I
spin
it's
one
cra-
up.
like let's go particle accelerators.
Hell yeah.
But you build
Let's go there.
You have a small one.
Yeah.
And you look at the history, even of CERN, it's the same way. When they start up the particle accelerators, the smallest, oldest one starts first.
Yeah.
They turn that one on, and it begins the acceleration, right? And they run that one for a while until it gets to its max energy level, and then it's got a
Tangent.
a tangent that goes to the next big one that they built 20 years after they built this first one, and then it circles on that one for months until it gets, and then bam, it gets shunted over to the biggest one, to the Large Hadron Collider, and then it circles in that one for a couple of months until it gets to the full. But they are all connected, and they start with the small one, and that's what it reminds me of. Like you got this one hole, and it's got a little box, and they're like, "Wow, this is kind of cool, but it's not quite giving us what we need. So let's build another hole with a little slightly bigger box."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, this is actually working out well. Let's build another one with an even bigger box.
Yeah.
And this box will be big enough where you can walk around in it."
Yep. Yeah, and that's the King's Chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I like that analogy. That's apt.
Yeah, it's like there is. That's why I was.
they-
That's why I was saying it's like not a copy, but is there some is there a development?
Well, that thing blew up
Right.
at some point, so let's hope that doesn't. Hopefully, the analogy doesn't carry over to the Large Hadron Collider because aren't they planning to try and make a black hole when the eclipse happens or something?
They're going to turn it on and make a black hole. Yeah,
during the eclipse. Sounds like a good plan.
well, it takes like months to
Spin
get it
one up. Yeah.
speed,
Sure.
so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they won't be making. Black
We don't
holes out
know
of
if
that.
they've been running it for months or not.
It takes them 6 months to cool it down.
They've
to
known
even turn it on.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
They've known about the eclipse for a long time.
they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be cooling it down already as we speak. Yeah, but yeah, they have to cool those magnets for a long time before it starts to work.
Oh yeah.
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 But yeah, this is all. So what else did we see walking around Giza? We noticed that some of the huge blocks at the base of the Great Pyramid are pretty much there's just stacks of fossils with sand, but it's been lithified.
Mm-hmm.
We saw this stuff when we were out in the Fayoum. The drivers actually stopped, and we all got out, and we're just standing on this sandy area that was like you could just you run your hands through the material, and it's nothing but shells and sand fossils from like what were they, Eocene,
Yeah.
30 to 40 million year old, seabed. And there are blocks in the Great Pyramid that are basically made of compacted lithified versions of this stuff that we were picking up.
Fossiliferous limestone.
Extreme. Like all it is fossils. Not a good building material. Not at all. But they made blocks out of it.
Yep.
And
Core masonry.
Yeah. It's core masonry. Yeah. And you can see all around the area, around the pyramid, there are sections of the bedrock that are also that stuff. It's just nothing but fossils, but it's all been glued together, basically lithified. And I found that to be really interesting. Like they're clearly pulling material from all around the area. You know, you can look up at the pyramid. If you stand there and just look at it for a while, you see there's all this different. It's not just, you know, they say, well, the core limestone masonry. Well, some of it was probably taken from those massive limestone quarries that Yusuf took us to last time we were there. These gigantic
Over in
holes.
Cairo, like across the river.
Yeah. Across the river, there are these enormous. They're not like normal quarries where you're digging down. Somebody dug into the cliff walls.
They were following layers.
Layers and leaving these gigantic caverns.
There's another thing I noticed. Just speaking of layers, like in the tunnel under the Great Pyramid. I mean, under the Step Pyramid, they basically tunnel down through all this crappy limestone, and then they hit this, you know, like 8-foot thick, really solid layer of good Tura. And that's where all the tunnels just, they go up.
Let's dig the tunnels in the hard stuff.
They dug a shaft all the way down, and then they hit that hard layer, and they're like, that's the roof. For the tunnels.
Right.
The tunnels just go everywhere underneath that hard layer. And that's where they set the box. It's like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like they're masters of this stone. They know what they're doing. And like you can see it in the Osiris shaft as well. When you get down to the first room, they're following this particular layer of stone when they're cutting that big room. And then they go down again, and then they hit another hard layer, and then they cut a big room under it. It's like it's a solid roof for you know, you wouldn't want to dig a big open area
in the crappy materials.
Exactly. So they just go down until they hit that hard layer, and then it's like tunnels on. Let's go.
Did you guys know
That was
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, did you notice when you walked around the Great Pyramid, did you notice, because now I think it's the southern side where the boat museum used to be, now it's gone, and you can actually see all the casing stones. Did you notice that some areas, it's just the erosion on some of those casing stones at the bottom? I mean, it looks severe. Like I am going to be doing a video about erosion, the mortuary temple at the Middle Pyramid complex, and compared to the other Fourth Dynasty structures. But I look at some of the erosion on some of the existing casing stones still on the Great Pyramid. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Looks pretty severe in places. Other places not so much, but some of those casing stones look pretty heavily eroded.
They also have been plastering them. This was pissing us off that day. Remember, we saw all those casing stones where somebody has come along and tried to repair them to fix the erosion.
Yeah, in modern times, right? Yeah.
So they've like plastered it to give it this, you know,
put mortar all in it.
They put mortar and it filled
terrible.
the holes, and it just looks like crap.
It's horrible.
Yeah, well, that's that's probably why they stopped Waziri. Like, that was the other thing I was looking forward to seeing when just before the tour, right? Waziri dug that hole at the third pyramid at Menkaure. And was talking about rebuilding it, and I was like, okay, clearing the base and documenting it, good. Rebuilding it, bad, because I know how you guys are going to rebuild it.
They got fired.
He got fired. Mo told me, man. Yeah. Mo, literally, that when we got there and we figured out, he got pulled up, and they're like, there's a committee they stopped his work, and there's a committee that's headed by Zahi Was that's going to figure out what they're going to do about it. And Mo told me at the start of that too, he said he's gonna get fired. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, he's gone. And a month later, sure enough, fired.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Head of the antiquities department fired over saying some shit on Facebook about Menkaure Pyramid. Digging a hole. You dug a hole in the wrong spot, son. And they filled that shit in. Like, it was really annoying.
Filled the hole in.
Yeah, we turned up and I'm like, damn it. And you see all this fresh dirt there. I really wanted to.
Yep.
Because if you guys haven't seen that, go out and find it. You can look at like the excavations at Menkaure Pyramid. I think the video's on Facebook. But they dug down. I mean, where the entrance is, it's another 2.5 courses of stone beneath the ground. And massive
and I'm
granite
sure there's
blocks.
I'm sure there's a flat granite platform there too.
Well, that's what
on the other side.
I'm super interested in the bedrock there. Like, what's the bedrock preparation? Because you look at the other pyramids, there's these giant foundation tiles beneath them.
Yeah.
There
Huge
could
amount
be a
of
whole
bedrock
basalt
work.
floor and all that stuff under there too.
Yeah, who knows? It blows my mind that we've never cleared the bases of some of these monuments. Like, these are I don't know if you get any more famous than the pyramids of Giza, you know? But we just have never cleared the base of the Menkaure pyramid. We've never cleared the base of the Red Pyramid. I mean, the Bent Pyramid's still got rubble around it. You more or less, I think they've exposed the corner points, at least on that one. But, you know, the Red Pyramid, the Menkaure Pyramid, you can't see the base of it. Like,
the casing stones just go down into the sand, and that's it.
I would say one other thing about the erosion on the casing stones. It's very clear when you look at all the different structures on the plateau. The stones at the bottom are extremely eroded, like laterally.
Yeah.
They've got all these deep fissures in them laterally, and I'm definitely on the wind and sand erosion for in that camp. Like, this makes perfect sense. You can see like there'd be these little eddies, of sand just grinding away at that stone on the bottom. So of course it makes sense that the builders would put, or at least they don't have to be the pyramid builders. They could be repairers or whatever, but put granite on the first two courses.
Yeah.
No, the middle pyramid you're talking about.
You're gonna put you put granite on the first two courses of the pyramid, because that's going to hold up the most to that sand that's going to be in that first 10 feet of the pyramid base. And then once you get up higher, you can move to a slightly softer stone like Tura, and you're not going to deal with nearly as much erosion there.
Yeah.
So it's
I wonder if they did it'd be interesting if they did a site study. And they were like, well, where the Great Pyramid is, it's not going to have such a big problem. The Middle Pyramid, it's going to have a problem at the base. We'll put 1 or 2 courses of granite, and then Menkaure, it's gonna have a lot of windblown sand coming off that hill towards it. Yeah. So it needs 17 or 18 cases of granite.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's it's a lot of granite.
Yeah. There's a lot of work.
That Middle Pyramid, man, because there's that one spot on the north side where there's a granite block that's in the superstructure that's up at like 8-9 courses high. Did you guys see that? So as you walk
on the Middle Pyramid,
in the Middle Pyramid, there's a like to the left. If you're looking at the entrances to the left, up high, there's a couple granite blocks that are in there. Like, there's something else there. I don't think that's an indication that it was cased that high, but there's some feature that was made from granite up there. And it's to the left of the entrance, not the main entrance. It's not like if there ever was really an entrance to it there, because the main entrance you go into is through the bedrock out the front.
Yeah.
And then I just got to looking at the pictures of the pyramid and from all these different angles, and I just keep noticing that at some point, it's the first 5 or 6 courses. It like the quality of that pyramid shifts. Like, it's the bottom 5 or 6 courses, maybe more. 7 or something like this, but you can see a noticeable shift in quality, and it's just like, I don't know if it almost looks like 2 different periods of building to me. Was this like a platform at some point? Maybe it was encased in granite up to that point, and there was something on top of it.
A step pyramid.
It could have been something, and then later on, it was built into a true pyramid encased with the Tura limestone. I don't know, but there's this huge difference.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
It wouldn't, because you go and look at the higher levels of the core masonry of that thing, and it's quite poor. Like, it's a noticeably lower quality of core masonry than what the Great Pyramid is. But the bottom courses are way better. Like, there's megalithic blocks in there that are a couple 100 tons or 150 tons or so in those bottom courses, but that's not the case the higher up you go. It just shifts. There's a dramatic and obvious shift in like architecture. So I don't know. It's worth more investigation, but I keep looking at it and going, this is like this thing is something else. Like, I'm not sure it was always a pyramid.
Yeah. Well, that made me think of the satellite pyramids.
Yeah. I was going to say, I kind of got that idea about all of them.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, there's one that looks pyramidy, and then the middle one looks a lot more like a step pyramid or a ziggurat.
Right.
like a tall ziggurat, right? It's got a big, nice base platform, and in the whole middle of the pyramid has a very vertical aspect to it.
Like what's the one
like
we
a
go
tower
to?
with a very slight yeah,
Fayoum.
Yeah.
That central structure. I mean, come on, they built that first.
Oh, 100%. And then the
it was
casing
pyramided
came later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pyramided.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I could give Khufu credit for turning the Great Pyramid into a pyramid
Yeah.
because it was something else first.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Some other structure that may have been highly degraded, like starting to fall apart, and he's like, nah, you know. This is why maybe some of these kings did this for multiple sites. They weren't burial sites. Maybe they did want themselves buried in them at some point.
Who knows?
But like, why would you build multiple?
Yeah, like Snefru and his
Only
3
need
of
one
them.
for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they? Did they decide to start making these structures to protect these much older original structures, these core structures, whatever they were? Which is what, this goes back to the whole primordial mound thing. It's like something was going on.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. If these old kingdom kings were, they were not like Ramses.
Right. They were closer
and they
much
were
more connected to.
Yeah. So they honored these structures, they repaired them, they cased them over to keep them from falling apart more than they have, but they didn't claim them by writing their names all over them.
Right.
Right.
And
But some of the stones may have mason marks that say, "Yeah, we're the gang of Khufu."
right. Or, yeah. Well, even then, I'm not that particular glyph I've got issues with, but
Yeah.
there are
That
mason
particular
marks on
one.
other ones. And to be fair, there is they found one of the exterior blocks at the Red Pyramid supposedly has Snefru's name on it. Similar thing, supposedly. But yeah, I mean, but that whole concept of revering and protecting and preserving almost that older architecture, that's not unique to that area. I mean, this is a super common theme you see in South America and Peru. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's you can see the obviously much older layers of architecture that are then built on and protected and almost lovingly kind of encompassed by the later megalithic builders, and then the Inca would kind of do the same thing. The Inca came along and, all right, well, we're also going to put our touches on this and build on top of it and encircle it. It was almost there's this concept of this encircling and protection, circular protection of the older work. So interesting.
And there's even and in Egypt, there's even later versions of that where they were mud bricking encasing all that stuff in a mud brick wall.
Yeah.
Right.
I love this too, because you've got the superstructure. Obviously, it's sticking out of the mud brick.
Mm-hmm.
You can see these megalithic limestone blocks, whatever they are, just corners of them or whatever sticking out. They use this method of making these mud bricks. It's like, it's fine because they're going to put a roof on it. They're going to put this Tura limestone roof over the mud brick, and it's going to preserve it. It's going to preserve that inner structure. And even though the limestone was quarried away, the mud brick is melting away. Like, you're still only seeing like a little corner.
Yeah.
It's whatever is in there is
Still protected. Yeah.
thousands of years later. So the mud brick, I think, it's not necessarily like a lack of the ability, because they still may have cased it and finally worked that casing stone.
Yeah.
Right.
They could have built the casing stone to high degrees of accuracy.
Yeah.
But it's like, this core masonry can be whatever, and it's like,
there
depends on economics.
there could be giant mud brick pockets in Giza pyramid. We just don't know.
Yeah,
know,
we don't.
with
That's true.
Like the entirety of the middle pyramid is basically unknown.
That's what
It is.
Scan Pyramids Project found the mud brick section.
Pocket.
Damn it!
Did muons move differently through mud brick? I'm not sure.
I knew the throne of Khufu was going to be in there. But oh well.
Yeah.
All right, another break.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
All right. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the Serpent Podcast, joined by Ben from Uncharted X. And we have half our pyramids tied behind our backs just to make it square. We've been talking about Giza. We did so many things on this trip. I mean, 6 weeks. We did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things we wanted to get to is our explorations in the Fayoum in between the tours. So we had like 10 days, something like that, in between. So the first 3 or 4 we spent in Cairo, right next to the plateau, and that's when Kyle and I went on our walkabout on Giza and found many things. We took a bunch of videos there. We'll be publishing those soon. But then we went out to the Fayoum and did some trekking around in the desert. And the first day, the first day in the desert, we went out and went to, what was the place called?
Qasr El Saga.
Yeah.
I
So
think.
there is a what looks like an old kingdom style. It looks like similar to the Valley Temple, much smaller, but similar to the Valley Temple in construction. It was that sandstone?
It was either
What was that?
limestone or I don't know if it was sandstone. It might have been limestone. Could be one of the two.
Yeah. But similar in style of construction, just out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah, it really is.
out in the desert. It's just now, if you look at the historical records and read some of the published work on it, they suggest that this used to sit near where the flooding would come to. So there's this large
Lake.
sort of flat area, and it would make a big lake during flooding seasons where the flooding was.
Well, there still is a
particular-
lake there.
The Fayoum itself is like this. It's this huge basin, and it
Yeah.
kind of, if you're looking at a map of the Nile, it looks like almost like a grape leaf branching off of the Nile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way I always think of it when I see it on a map, and you can tell because it's green. So it's like it's an oasis,
Big depression. Yeah. It
huge depression that the Nile flooding would sort of branch off the Nile and fill this whole valley. And it's quite beautiful down there. But then on the ridges around it, that's kind of where we went
Yeah.
driving out into the
desert.
mountains.
Yeah.
It just changes from green to desert.
You climb up these mountains and you're just in the high desert, and
Yeah.
down below you can see there's lakes down there. It's a beautiful area. But yeah, that's the basic geography.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an ancient landscape. I mean, it's this it's full of fossils and this is where it's similar area to, I mean, the Western Deserts where the Valley of the Whales are.
Yeah.
You have 30, 40 million year old skeletons poking up out of the sands, and you can just tell this is an ancient place. And then, you drive around these hills, go around the top of the lake there. I don't know if it's Lake Moeris. It's one of the other lakes, I think. And then, all of a sudden you just find yourself at this massive structure that's sitting out in the middle of the desert, and it's
feel
very
like-
similar to the Valley Temple, like megalithic, polygonal masonry. You've got chambers behind the walls. It has bull-nosed chapels. It has all these similar features. It's got architecture like the Valley Temple. It's got bull noses and curvatures and cornice blocks like both Old Kingdom and the boxes on Elephantine Island. There's flint everywhere around the place. It's even as we walked out and went around in the surrounding neighborhood, there's clearly evidence for occupation. Like there's tunnels and burials and stuff everywhere out there. So it's
Prehistoric occupation.
Yeah.
prehistoric occupation. Yeah.
Pottery lying all over the place.
Yeah. Really interesting little spot. I hadn't heard much about it, but I was super happy we got out there because I went out there last year. I went out there when I was there with Yusuf and Mo for a few days, and so I've been wanting to get you guys out there, and we took a few people out there, and this was one of those things you can go and see. There's a ton of these sites that are kind of off the beaten track you can go out and take a look at, and this was, I don't know what to make of it. Excuse me. It's super interesting though. I mean, it just doesn't fit the story. There's even around it, there seems to be evidence for like an older structure that's been destroyed. Like there's blocks that are super heavily eroded, but they're clearly cut blocks.
Yeah.
That are laying around outside it. So maybe, this is only a portion of what was here originally, or it's a rebuilding of what was here originally. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, in that, just thinking of it in those terms, that it might have been a piece of something rebuilt, that makes a little bit more sense. Just that thing by itself.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can understand the urge to say this is a shrine or this is a temple.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, it's so weird. Like, what function could it possibly have? Again, no writing. It's not covered in hieroglyphs.
No.
Yeah.
So that was,
There were statues in it. I think there's a remnant
Yeah.
of a statue, like a calcite statue.
Yeah,
It's in
there's
one of the-
7 alcoves when you go
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
So it just made me think of a shrine. Like
Yep.
this is some shrine, but again,
But they also connect it to the removal of basalt from
that's what I'm saying. It's on the road to a quarry,
Yeah.
and
A
the road
road, yeah.
itself
Yeah.
is another thing entirely. I mean, we're driving along, and I'm like, what is this? Old railroad track?
No, world's
Looking out
oldest
the
road.
window, I'm like, we're driving past all this stuff. I'm like, that's petrified wood.
It's petrified wood.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a corduroy road made out of petrified wood.
Corduroy
Yes.
road made from petrified wood and basalt. And
Yeah.
basalt. So there's literally like, this is, describe it to people, you're out in the desert, this is the Western Desert, and you're just shooting out in these dunes, and it's this crazy desert landscape. And then for a portion of this, we're driving towards these mountains in the distance. And you just notice that you're right next to this. I mean, it's fairly narrow. What is it, like 4 meters maybe?
like a railroad track.
Like a railroad track. Yeah, like the berm. It's
4
wide.
cubits.
Yeah, it's... yeah, 4 cubits, right. Royal
2
cubit
horses
or,
wide.
is it the royal
2
cubit?
horses.
Yeah. African cubit, royal cubit. Yeah. But it's straight as an arrow too. It runs straight from, and it goes directly to what turns out is the basalt quarry, which is I've always wanted to get to because I've talked about it in videos. I said I know they say there's a quarry out in the Western Desert at the far edge of the Fayoum region out in the desert. And this road apparently runs straight back to the lake, and it goes for miles. And I think it is acknowledged as one of the world's oldest roads, like 4,000 or 5,000 year old road. And it's, who knows how old it is? It's tough to date the stone, but they made the damn thing from petrified wood and basalt from the quarry, and it's just full. And then there's nearby is like a petrified forest that we went and took a walk through too, where you see the remnants of whole trees and skeletons and fossils from ancient whales and crocodiles and things like this. But really interesting why they did that. And then you keep driving and following it, and we got to kind of the mountains, and it's all these mountains that are covered in basalt, and you just see these just basalt boulders and rubble everywhere, and you got to keep climbing up them and walking up them through these little valleys and stuff, and then you're faced with these series of these tall hills, and they're still quarrying basalt from it. I mean, we could hear across on the other side of the mountains they were, they're hammering away and pulling basalt out of there. But this is also an ancient quarry, where at the very top layer, it's like all this crumbling basalt. None of it looks to be big enough pieces that you'd think could be used for some of the sizes of the basalt blocks we've seen on sites. Like at Abu Sir, you've got giant big basalt blocks. You've got statues made from basalt that are really large. There's other slabs of basalt, and you're looking around, and you're like, none of this seems to fit that bill. But if you look right at the top of the hill, at the crest of the hill, the top, 7 or 8 meters, it's solid basalt, and apparently that's where they were quarrying a lot of this basalt from. We didn't quite get up there because it's sketchy, and it's quite a climb. But it's one of these days we will, I think. Yeah,
we're gonna have to climb up there. We didn't know for sure when we were out there.
Yeah,
if we were in the right place. Yeah. But later we were looking at some of the maps and the papers, and we're pretty close to the right spot. And if they're correct, then up at the top there were like 4 different areas where they've marked as ancient quarries.
Yeah, and supposedly there's saw cuts and stuff up there too, like the same sort of stuff you see on the other blocks.
Exactly. That was what we wanted to get out there to see. Like, are there the same cut marks, witness marks, and stuff in these quarries as what we see on site?
I was just trying to imagine that road. Like, they literally took this, like, there's a log laying over there.
Yeah,
it's basically stone.
Yeah. Go find some more.
I mean, they just laid them all down one after the other. You try to imagine driving on a road made of logs, but these are stone logs, and they're narrow, and it's just, I don't know. Well, and then underneath the stone logs was some kind of calcite or some other limestone material they were using. It's like, I don't know. It's just trying to imagine, okay, we're going to climb up this mountain, cut this huge basalt block off of it, and then you're going to drag it down this road made of
Petrified wood.
petrified trees. I just
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, we don't know what that finished surface of that road might have looked like, whether this is still part of its foundation or not. I mean, if there was something on top of that, it's all gone.
I mean, surely they could have flattened it just like they flattened granite.
Yeah.
So it might have been nice. It was just amazing to see that they actually used, the logs as though they were logs and laid them down one after the other.
Stone logs.
You could see the round ends sticking out with the wood grain in it on the side of the road.
Tree rings and shit. No, it was. Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, and then we found the petrified forest and went for a walk through that, and then I think we also hit the Valley of the Whales when we were out there. But the Fayoum's such an interesting place, and then there was quite a bit of dooning, as you were saying. We did some dooning.
We did
some
dooning.
dooning.
This is all in 4-wheel drives, so we did spend a few hours playing in the dunes with the boys, driving us around and having all the kids and children and women screaming.
You get on the peak of this dune like this, it's like way up there, and it's just this corner, and the Jeeps are driving on that corner. You're looking down, it's like, oh my God, that is so. And then you see, we're in the back, my Jeep with my family in it, Laura and the kids. They're in the back. I'm in the passenger seat, and you see the Jeeps in the front just go off the edge, and they start sliding, drifting down the side, and Laura starts screaming. As soon as she sees it, she's like, "No!" Away we go. We go down the edge too. And, oh my God, it was epic.
And you get a sand bath.
Hilarious. Yeah,
the window's halfway down. It comes off the tire and just washes you.
Yep.
Just like
there's no AC, so you're like, you start getting hot, so you roll the windows down, and then the wind picks up and just Ben and I get coated
in sand. Yeah.
In sand.
Yeah. We're in the silent Jeep. We just sat there stoically.
It was hilarious. I knew
totally done plenty of this. Yep.
I knew it. They were in front of us, and Laura and the kids are just screaming their heads off every time we do something crazy. And then at some point we're driving along, and I just tell Laura, I'm like, I bet that Jeep up there is completely quiet. And sure enough, we get to the stop point. The Egyptian guys were awesome. We stop at this really cool place where there's an overhang. There's this big protrusion of bedrock, and we're in the sand, and there's this big overhang in the shade. And they just lay out all these carpets and start grilling and set up tables and pillows and everything, and just serve this beautiful, amazing lunch under this overhang of this cliff. It was quite something. And then they busted out some instruments, started jamming for it. It was so cool, just being way out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it was cool.
Anyways, I confirmed it was true. I went over there and I was like, how was the ride, you guys? Oh, it was great. That was quiet. Oh, yeah. We could hear y'all screaming.
Yeah, I literally could hear you guys screaming from our Jeep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could hear the screams. Yeah.
Yeah, we were, the only noise in our Jeep was us laughing because we could hear y'all's Jeep. We start laughing. It was hilarious.
Our driver, whenever he would a lot of times you're trying to climb some dune and just didn't get enough power or whatever, and there was a couple of vehicles that had to stop and back down, and we're following pretty close behind one of them.
Yeah, he
and
was cursing out our guy, right?
Multiple times, our driver would start yelling in Arabic. I'm sure he was cursing the guy in front of us, and I would just copy whatever he was saying. Blah, 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 blah. He would laugh.
Because you guys were following us, and sometimes our driver was a little slow.
He was a little slow.
Your driver would have to back up and try it again,
change direction.
Come out over here.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys know the desert. That's an amazing thing about it. They just go out and they just kind of know what direction they're going and where to head and where they're. I mean, they've been doing it for decades probably, and then. Yeah. But you just feel like you're literally out in the desert. You can't see anything. It's just desert, and we're just hauling ass through the desert. It is an experience. Yeah, Egypt's got a lot to offer. It's an incredibly rich country in terms of just different experiences and different places that you can go and do. It's really interesting. People don't think about those aspects. And then you got the Red Sea, which is I mean, beautiful. You wouldn't these beaches and coral and some of the nicest water you'll ever see.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah,
water.
It's pretty amazing. We went from getting doused with sand, coursing on dunes in Jeeps, and 3 days later we're 70 feet down in beautiful, clear, crystal clear water, looking at coral and fish.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
Toilets.
Yeah,
yeah.
there was a shipwreck with some toilets.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I got a great picture of you. Well, and I mean,
I just turn around, I look down there all the way at the bottom, and Russ is sitting on this ancient toilet. He's just like straddling this toilet, just looking around like,
Yeah.
Somebody take my picture. Yeah, blowing bubbles. That's good.
great comedic moment. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at that photo the other day. It was funny.
And then Ben, afterwards, we were sharing photos, and then he sends us a picture from like 10 years ago where he was sitting on a
I
toilet.
literally have, I have a picture of doing the exact same. When you see your toilet underwater, you go sit on it. That's what you do. Yeah. I sat on a toilet just like that. That's what I was laughing about. Underwater, I think I was laughing.
Yeah.
I saw you sitting on it. I'm like, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Ben is a fish, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you guys know this, but I turn around and he's doing flips.
You did amazing. No. For you, I was so impressed with your dive. Honestly, like you were worrying about Laura because Laura came with us too on the dives. You were driving this super complicated iPhone super case dive computer thing, taking pictures, and you had no problem managing your own dive. And this is kind of was your guys' first real dive, like real open ocean. Proper dive out, and you just handled it like it was nothing. That was super impressive.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I did have some ear problems.
We all did.
Trying to,
Just the congestion from Egypt.
We all had some congestion and some. We were questioning whether we were even going to be able. Ben and I were just like, well, let's do a shore dive the first time, and like we'll get down and see can we even equalize. Yeah.
Because for me, I mean, I hadn't been diving in more than 10 years, so.
Yeah,
but I did awful lot of it back in the day, and I love the water. I'm comfortable. I mean, I think the most important thing is as long as you're comfortable and you don't panic, and you can handle yourself in the water. As long as you remember the fundamentals of diving, you click right back into it, which is what happened. I was fine, but I was a bit worried because I'm like, diving while you're congested, you got sinus problems is never a great idea. But it was fine.
Yeah, you were funny too, though. You'd get down there, there'd be some fish or whatever. You had your GoPro,
like get right in its face.
He just like the fish is just
that's right.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's got this little thing. He's poking stuff.
Yeah,
he's got my little rod.
Rod. He's poking shit with it. Yep.
Yeah, I did. I saw the footage of you and those little fish were biting your fingers. You started to play with those bottom feeding fish, and then you had to snap your hand away because they started like, we're going to eat your fingers now, and you're like,
yeah,
get out of here.
They definitely took some bites out of me. Yep.
That was great.
Yeah, it was fun. But so then we came back and did it all again for the second tour, and it was just as epic. What was interesting, actually, one of the aspects of doing two tours, and we started off by talking about some of the new work that's happening on some of these sites. Abu Sia's been cleared out. Even Abu Ghorub nearby has, they've exposed some structure in the sand out the back of that. Yeah. One thing I noticed, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but and this was like, I wonder how often this sort of thing happens. Because the first time we went to Abu Sia, Abu Ghorub, which is the Sun Temple, the obelisk base. There was an archaeologist that worked there, and they had excavated out the front of in the courtyard, the big area in front of this obelisk base and the Hotep, and they cleared it all out and they've exposed the bedrock. And there was some mud brick stuff, and there was all these features. They dug it right down to the bedrock, and he's walking around barefoot. We're all hanging around waiting for them to leave so we can do our thing. Yeah. And he's taken all these pictures of it and stuff. We see him documenting it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I know they've been working on that site for the last couple of years. But then we came back a month later, and it's all buried again. They buried it back again. They literally took it up. They dug it up. They documented it, and then they reburied it. Which, in principle, I'm fine with. But it's just like, where does that data go? I'd love to know. Like, is this going to be in a paper, or is it just something happens in academia, or does it come out 10 years later? I mean,
that's the weird thing about
we just never know what gets done, and
we don't know what's in the archives. I mean, they've got who knows what.
Well,
that's I mean, that goes back to your point too about like a lot of this stuff was published, like Petrie stuff he was publishing, but there's so much. Like, did anyone ever excavate these shafts on the Giza Plateau? It's like,
no one knows.
where's that data?
I've tried. I mean, doing the same thing in the pyramid, right? Obviously, when we went into the Great Pyramid, and we went in, we do a special permission. We end the tours with this awesome 2 hours inside the Great Pyramid, go into all the chambers, blah blah blah. And there's the first time we went in there is not as much stuff. And the second time we go in there, I mean, for starters, the Queen's Chamber is just full, like a workshop in there. There's like a drop saw, a miter saw. They're doing woodworking. They got there's cables going everywhere. And then, the first time we saw there was obviously an electricity cable going up into the chambers above the King's Chamber, the relieving chambers. So the access to that's at the top left corner of the Grand Gallery, 18, 20 feet up in the air, and there's a cable going in there. And then the second time we go in there, there's actually the ladder for it is strapped to the railing. And I asked him, can we get this ladder out and get up in there? He's like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, God damn it. What are you doing up there? That there's a cable. I know I'm sure they're drilling for this new void is what I suspect's going on, but who knows?
Yeah. The thing that's really funny to me about that ladder is like in Chris Dunn's book, The Giza Power Plant, when he goes through the history of discovery, and I think it's Davidson or somebody, it's like, there's this tunnel up in the top of the Grand Gallery. We got to get up there, and they tie 2 ladders together with rope. And me and Russ were laughing. We're like, dude, that is you're at the top of the Grand Gallery. It's so sketchy. Yeah, you're gonna tie 2 ladders together and to get up in this hole.
Guess
and
when
we get there, they have 2 ladders tied together with rope. I was like, I know what that is for. Exactly. Yeah. Still the same methods.
And it's just strapped to the railing that's in there that helps people walk up and down the Grand Gallery. I'm like, God damn it, can we just untie this and prop it up and go and see?
No.
But so
there's a power cable going up there. The ladder. They're doing something. Yep.
Yeah, that thing's been run up there for a year or so. I mean, they've definitely been in there. I mean, they closed that pyramid, as I've told people, like last year in the summer for 3 months. I mean, so they, I had heard various things about, obviously they found that first chamber, the new chamber that's beneath the chevrons at the main entrance, and somebody told me that they knocked a hole in that. And I mean, they drilled, they put an endoscope in there and took a look. And then somebody told me that, they'd cut a hole in it to actually go in there. Although, Russ, you and I did actually manage to get up there on this last trip and take a good look at it. Big tube drills up there, as a matter of fact.
In the dark,
in the
to
dark.
be fair.
Yeah, you're not supposed to go. So I mean, it's so stupid.
Told us not to use lights. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go up there these days.
Yeah.
You used to be able to. Like, there's literally a built like the way you get into the regular pyramid and just the main entrance now, the Mamun's hole. They built a staircase, and it's like you can just walk up there. There's also an existing kind of staircase that they built up to the main entrance, but there's a gate, and they won't let anyone up there now. But back in like 2016, you could just go up there. Like, you could just walk up there and take a look. Yeah. But at some point they're like, now this is all off limits. You can't do it anymore. But of course, we're there for 2 hours. It's night time because we're doing our private entry, and we just, hey, can we go up there? And like, okay, make it quick, no lights, because otherwise the cops out on the plateau get all excited when they see lights, up the pyramid. Like somebody's trying to climb the pyramid. Yeah. And I really wanted to get up there because I knew there was, and I'd seen it before. There's a big granite block with these massive tube drills.
Yeah,
really
they go all the way through, like deep,
long tube drills that have really, really clear striation. One's split, like the typical quarrying where they've cut it split along the axis of the tube drill, but then 2 more behind it that are full of sand and shit. But they're obviously there, and it's part of some mechanism that must have been up on that main entrance. But yeah, it's just there's all these little hidden features on that thing, and they're doing stuff. I mean, we didn't see any holes to get into that other chamber, but like I said, they closed the pyramid for 3 months, and God only knows what they were doing in there. I mean, cleaning. But I suspect, I just wish there was a bit more transparency about what is actually happening, because I know I'm sure some of those guys that are working on it feel like they own it. It's their information. It's their their monument, but it's like there's a lot of interested people that want to know what's happening in there, and there's certainly a long history of things happening in there that nobody knows about.
Right. And then, like you've said, and Yusuf says, like the ministry controls the release of whatever is discovered. So
Oh, you take Gantenbrink, for example. I mean,
Yeah.
like he wrote that whole report on all the stuff that he found. They canned it for so long.
Yep.
He eventually just releases the information on his website.
yeah.
Louis de Cordier did the same
Never
thing.
released.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the labyrinth. I mean, they canned his report
Yeah.
on the labyrinth too, and
And
then
reports,
whatever,
published on a website.
5 or 6 years later, he publishes it and goes, stuff it. I'm going to try
Yep.
and put the data out there. But who knows how much stuff's happened? I mean, I've dug into it a bit in the past. There's acoustic engineer reports of stuff that happened during the Shore expedition in the late 90s where they were trying to do acoustic experiments in the pyramid. It's, that in itself is a not well understood series of experiments that happened, but they also report during that time having problems setting up their experiments at nighttime because they're hammering away and drilling and excavating up in the relieving chambers, and they're seeing guys coming out there with burlap sacks full of limestone chips. I mean,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
What the hell? Yeah.
This is the 90s, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what they've been doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the last time we were there in 2022, the robbers' tunnel in the alcove in the Queen's Chamber was open, sort of.
Right. Yeah,
We went in
sort
there.
of.
Yeah.
Wasn't
This
a lot.
time it was completely sealed off and locked, and I guess that is the place where the Scan Pyramids guys put their.
Move on to
At least that's what I've read. That's where they put their actual
Plates,
the active plates, right? Because you can put it in there and you can lock it away. It's not going to be disturbed by any tourists,
Yeah.
even if they're coming in and out of the Queen's Chamber. So we couldn't get in there this time, but the Queen's Chamber, half of the chamber was sealed out. You couldn't get to the back half of the chamber.
Yeah, I mean, literally half.
From the shaft entrances, the two little shaft entrances, from there to the back half of the chamber was completely filled with equipment and materials and boards and
They put
it
up
was
tape,
sealed off and-
caution tape. Yeah.
caution tape. Yeah.
And same thing in the descending passage, right? All the way up. Normally, you can turn left and go up to the top
Up
of the
to the top,
descending
yeah.
passage, and
It's
now
full
just
of
full of
stuff.
stuff. So
Yeah.
there's lots going on. I mean, I know they closed the middle pyramid for, I think they'd run and scan. I mean, I don't know if they're doing that or not.
Scan pyramid stuff.
Scan pyramid stuff. Although I think they're also doing it in the third pyramid. There was,
Yeah,
we was
on the
there's
outside.
Definitely stuff happening there.
Yeah, they on the, what is it, the east wall where the
east.
other
East
flat-
side.
Yeah,
The other
mortuary,
flat
the
area is-
temple structure.
They had built a scaffold there. They were running GPR up against that flattened surface, right
Yeah.
across that prism block.
Yeah.
He had a little GPR unit, and it's
Wafting
He's-
it back and forth.
going back and forth on the scaffold, pointing it into that wall.
I wonder if they've done some scan pyramid stuff down inside and they have seen something
Yeah.
near that
Well,
face.
you remember we went in there, right? And when you go into the bottom of that, there's that one right at the bottom. There's a right hand turn and there's a gate that leads down to
Yeah.
another chamber. And we walked past there, and there were some irritated looking Japanese men locked behind that gate.
Yeah.
That's the Scan Pyramids team. Like that
Yeah.
is 100% Scan Pyramids guys. Yeah, they're like, God, these fucking tourists, like they're just
Fucking tourists, yeah.
They're probably like this stream of people all day coming past them. Like, what are you doing in there? Like, just go away.
Yeah.
We're busy. Stop breathing our air, kind of thing.
You're making it hot in here.
You're making
Yeah.
it hot in here. Yeah. I mean, it's cool they opened that pyramid up again. It was closed since. I mean, it was been closed for 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, so that was the first time I've been down in there. And it is, you go down into the bedrock,
Yep. There's a
but there's
granite
blocks. Yeah, and there's a granite room.
Room, granite
Yeah.
box.
Yeah, that doesn't it have the curved ceiling. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember.
Yeah, it
curved
has the
ceiling.
curved ceiling, same as Lahoon. So Lahoon
Yes.
is also the big the granite room with a curved ceiling.
Yep.
And there was another box in there, but it's now it was what was the name of the ship? The Deirdre or something. It sunk. Vice tried to take it back on the ship.
Diving opportunity.
Yeah.
Diving. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people have been trying to find that thing.
Oh Oh, no one's found it.
No one knows where it is. No, they. So it was a ship when it's fully laden. I have the bill of. I got it from Matt at Ancient Architects. He thinks he's going to go. He wants to go and try and find it. I'm like, go nuts. But,
Nice.
But he's been tracking it down. Like he found the bill of lading, like the insurance for it, and it lists like 100 plus artifacts. One of them is the box from that third pyramid that came out of Egypt, and the damn thing sunk in the Med somewhere. So. That box is currently sitting along with a bunch of other probably really cool shit on the bottom of the Med somewhere.
Currently.
Yeah, currently. Who knows, right? I mean, down there with all the other obelisks that sank and everything else that went down. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, isn't there some gold ship that I saw something in the news recently about some salvage where they were trying to find this, like apparently literally billions of dollars worth of, in modern era worth of gold on some treasure ship that came out of Spain or South America or something. Just hoarding all the gold, and like it sank. Like, you fuckers are too greedy.
Yep. Too much gold.
Too much gold. Sunk it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of gold. I mean, who knows? I mean, that always astounds me when you talk about the gold coffin of some of these places. I mean, obviously it's a decorative metal, but they had access to a ton of it because, I mean, it's literally like, what, 100 plus kilograms of gold in one of these sarcophagus?
Yeah.
One of these masks, the Tutankhamun treasures or something. It's like, that's a lot of gold.
That was the other interesting thing, or one of the other interesting things, when we were on Elephantine Island this time. We went around the backside.
Oh, yeah.
Yusuf was showing like that. He was like, there was a whole gold sifting operation here.
Oh, yeah. We found gold.
Yeah. And he was like, look, you can just sort of push your hands through the dust and sort of shake it off, and you'll see little tiny gold specks. Because the whole island is laden with it. It's in the quartz, in the granite.
Yeah.
So they were mining and grinding this stuff, and then there's this entire mud brick town, and you could see layers and layers and layers of it.
Oh, yeah.
Off the backside. It had been washed away in some flood, so it was sort of cut.
That was crazy going back there. I mean, it's just this huge wall.
Yeah.
And just
That's a midden, boy.
all the pottery in there. Yeah, I was like, "That's midden."
McCall got real excited. It's like, midden.
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Let's go." It's like, "No,
Yeah.
got here."
Yeah,
we
that
should.
was interesting.
The other thing about that, though, the pyramid on the backside with there's that huge natural hole in the bedrock, in the
Yeah.
granite bedrock,
Yeah.
and there's a pyramid back there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how big it was originally,
Small,
but
Yeah.
it's kind of a small pyramid. But somebody just cut all the way into the center of it, kind of like they did at Minkara. They were like cutting a hallway into the center of the pyramid, and in the middle is this giant natural, what are they called? Caulks?
Yeah, like a pothole in the.
A giant pothole in the granite made by the eddies in the river.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's where they had the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
They found it. Yeah, we did get into the Sadat temple down there too, which I've been wanting to get into for a long time. We finally got behind the door from the guys that closed it up. This is this really cool, again, ancient granite structure that's beneath the current temple that's been rebuilt like 8 times in different eras. And
That was really cool.
yeah, it was kind of cool getting in. I've been wanting to get into that room for quite some time. Then there's another locked door over nearby that I know that there's something behind there you can't get to. That's Elephantine Island's like this mysterious place.
That was cool because you go into that door and it's underground now, but there's the huge natural boulders, and you could see like they kind of reconstructed some of the mud brick walls where the people were building shelters, and then there's like a carving on the side of one with hieroglyphs. I don't know. It was just that was really interesting.
Strange place down there.
Just shows you how deeply that stuff has been buried, and this is.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I was blown away by that wall of midden too. It was just
it's super deep. Yeah, it's Elephantine Island's like.
That's Göbekli Tepe size midden pile.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, yeah. How many meters was that, Ben?
Oh, it was a bunch. It was it was,
They said. I mean, don't the Göbekli Tepe midden is like 15 meters deep or something.
it was something like that. It must. Yeah. I mean, that's the realm of where this big giant wall of this stuff. I mean, you just anywhere where the ground's been cut, you just see it's pottery and detritus from civilization just piled up, and
And if you look at the layers in detail, you can go down. There's like pottery, 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 and then all this black granite.
Yep.
And then it goes down some more pottery, and then there's
Tura.
a bunch of Tura limestone. It's
Yeah.
like and where he's excavated the area where the boxes are, there's a black granite box there that's been just shattered and quarried. And I'm looking at the midden layer. I'm like, they got down to the top of that box and just started freaking just cutting into
it
it.
up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. That gold was cool. I didn't know that was there either until Yusuf started talking about it.
Yeah, he was pointing that the area where the guy's doing current work, like it's fenced off, but we saw him the first time we came there. He was there.
Yep.
And they had workers there, and they were moving stuff, with wheelbarrows and stuff.
Yeah.
Yusuf said that's where they were doing the gold stuff.
Oh yeah, the gold processing site. Yeah.
Yeah, the processing site is over there where the archaeology is happening right now. So.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Still look dope.
Yes, they are.
Looking for who knows what. I mean, he's notorious. The guy who works on that site is sort of well known for
the angry German.
The angry German for like finding stuff, and then he just basically builds a concrete pad over it, and then puts a door on it and locks it and doesn't let anyone in there.
Yeah.
And no one really knows what he's doing, but he's been there forever looking for something in particular, which is
really
interesting when you tie it to, this was the Ark of the Covenant apparently held here, right, for 400 years or something.
Yeah. I mean, the first time, was it the first tour or the second tour when we were up on deck with Yusuf at night? He bought a bottle of wine, which he almost never does, and we were sitting up there chilling with him, having some glasses of wine, and he was talking about that guy in that site, and he was like, I think he found something, and it was taken from him.
And that's why he behaves this
He's
way.
never recovered from that particular thing, and so now he seals everything up, and he doesn't tell anybody what's going on, and he's kind of very secretive. Like, he still is able to dig there, but the first time he found something,
and it got taken.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to say that's one of the most impressive reconstructions of the temple, though.
Yeah.
Like the work that they're doing there.
Yeah.
When you go, I mean, you can see all of the archaeological reconstruction, the concrete, the mortar, and everything. And there's like a piece of a pillar that's just shattered, and it's got like a leg. And then they've got the concrete reconstruction of the rest of the pillar, and they draw the whole guy out on there. And then there's like another chunk of stone over there, and it's got a little bit of writing and a piece of some shape, and then they've drawn the rest of the tool that he's holding in his hand or whatever. Then you go along and you're looking, and like they've got these areas where they've collected all these small stones like this big. Each one has like a little piece of writing or something on it, and then on the back he's got a number, alphanumeric, and they're just in this array. I was constantly telling people, don't step on that, don't walk
don't
over
mess
there.
with
it. Like this, I mean, just it's incredible that the idea of like trying to rebuild this temple the way that they're doing it. It's like
It is good.
Imagine.
It's one of the better examples of reconstruction, I think.
Yeah.
The artwork
Really
in particular, like that's very clean, like how they've redrawn those figures, and it just seems to look right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can see the big floor tiles in the temple area, and each one is numbered, right? Yeah. And they're all put in place, by the numbers and stuff. It's pretty
incredible.
amazing. Yeah.
And I just keep thinking like he's trying to read this book.
Yeah.
He's got all the pieces of pages laying around. He's just like, what the hell does this book say? Then the tourists come in there and start stepping on his numbered rocks.
Yeah, I remember actually we were on, I think we went there last year too, and someone was leaning up against the one. I try to tell people, like, when you're in these temples, don't touch it. Like, try not. I mean, it is thousands of years old, and it's delicate, and it's color, and it's, try not to touch it. I mean, if you have to, it's certain thing, fine, but, try not to generally touch it or lean up against it or whatever. And someone was leaning up against it, and one of his research assistants came up and said, "Oh, excuse me, you're leaning on the, the ancient artwork that we're trying to restore. Please don't do that." I was like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel for the guy. I mean, I also still want to go and look at the progress, but
yeah, I mean, it's the work of a lifetime.
I understand.
Yeah, it must be brutal. I mean, it's got to be yeah. I mean, you can understand that. I think you can understand the mentality of somebody that is invested their life in trying to reconstruct or find something, and they're there every day, and it's just these people keep coming in, and you're like, just, this is mine, go away.
Yeah.
You know, I understand it, but at the same
Yep.
time.
Yep.
It's like, I'm going to jump in this box real quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
These assholes keep coming and climbing around on your decoding process.
Messing it up.
Where is stone AB 21479?
Diamond was here yesterday.
Oh, sorry. Somebody kicked it over here a little bit.
Yeah.
But that also happens, right? There's that
Yep.
triple corner
Gonna
block
mention
that we
it.
found. Yeah. And we have never been able to find it since.
Gone. Yeah.
It's gone.
I have 2 or 3 different artifacts that I can point to like that over time, where it's just like, we found something interesting, and you document it and you leave it there, and then you come back a year later and you're like, it's gone. And I've tried to find that. I've actually I've gotten Mo to chase it down with the staff there and say, hey, this block, and we showed them pictures of it. Is it in the museum? Did you move it? Is it here? Is it there? And they're like, nope, no idea. And someone's carried it off. Gone forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a beautiful piece of one of these big boxes that are on Elephantine Island, and it's the join between 3 of the bullnoses. It's just that corner where you have these 3 beautiful bullnoses come together on an outside corner, and yep, it's somebody's doorstop now, I guess, or it's on the antiquities market somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're gonna put it in the gym.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think you'd know a little bit more about it if that was the case, but no.
You mean in the gym, like
I suspect
In the gym.
in the
Yes,
gym.
they're taking it.
Yep.
They're like, yes, this is great for
gonna
us.
lift.
Which is
The
also
Grand-
a funny story, right? The Grand Egyptian Museum. I've stopped promising people that we're going to go in there because
Right.
it's still not open. And interesting fun fact, they've been building that thing for 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah.
And how long did they say it took to build the Great Pyramid again? Oh, 25 years. I see. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This is a tiny little museum compared to the Great Pyramid. But no, you guys can't get it done in modern times in 20 years, and you expect us to believe that someone built the Great Pyramid with primitive methods in 25 years. Yep, makes perfect
But
sense.
going back to this idea of restoration,
Yeah.
it is conceivable that they pyramided a previous large structure in 25 years.
Yeah, that's a lot more believable.
Especially if all the surrounding structure was already in place, the tiling, the causeway, so they could drag their blocks up.
The orientation is there. I mean, you're not having to get
And
that
they
thing
built
so
mud
perfectly
brick
lined up.
ramps, blah blah blah. They did it all the way. But
Or
there definitely is
scaffoldings.
like all these. Every pyramid that you see that's in some like severe level of destruction, even the cut into Menkaure, it gets to a vertical wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's slightly tilted,
Right.
but there is a superstructure
Interior structure,
inside.
yeah.
And like all those satellite pyramids that are degraded, like there's this really steep structure on the inside.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I
They
mean,
all seem to have this.
My Doom in particular, like that's a real mystery because because the casing has fallen away so completely at My Doom. I mean, those blocks on the what is the outside of that interior structure look like they were finished, like as if they were
they look like
intended to
finished.
be the outside structure originally,
Yeah.
and then it was a true pyramid at one point, and that was all covered up, and now all that fell away, and
Yeah.
it's a real interesting. That's an interesting hypothesis. I mean, it makes more sense to me. Like that. I think it certainly fits in the renovation and reuse sort of themes, which I think is something that it was heavily employed by the dynastic Egyptians. Given that I think they started with a lot of stuff, and you know, same. It's just a different interpretation of the timelines. I think it's the same explanation I try to give when people talk about, you know, Hatshepsut's obelisk at Karnak, this 450-ton massive obelisk, and they say, well, you know, the writing on it says that it was completed in, you know, 6 or 7 months or whatever it was. This figure of this date. I'm like, yeah, that's nonsense. Like when you work backwards, you understand what it takes to quarry and shift and move and stand up and transport all this stuff. But I could believe that the carving on it was completed inside of that time.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a valid interpretation of what those glyphs on that obelisk say. It's like, yeah, she put her name on it and wrote this beautiful carving that's all up and down that obelisk. Yeah, I think you can imagine that might have been completed in 6 or 7 months, given you got to build the scaffolding and then plan it and get it done by stonemasons. Not like you can put 100 of them at once, so you got to, they're just going to have to do it in specific areas at a time.
And she claimed that it was carved with electrum,
Right?
Wrought with
electrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So if this idea that and we saw there's a beautiful hatchet.
Yeah, it's like a knife or an axe or a hatchet or something in the...
Yeah, an axe.
This is in the Luxor Museum, yeah?
In the Luxor Museum, and they say that it's...
Electrum.
That there is electrum parts of it.
Yeah.
And the second time I went to see it, I went to look at it again, and I looked at it really closely, and I had the the big light. I'm trying to determine, like, do they think the whole thing is electrum, or is it inlaid? Because there's lots of scroll work on it and everything. It's very decorated. But it's interesting because this idea of like what is electrum exactly. But the carving did claim that the obelisk was wrought with electrum, and the definition of that term is like worked with, right? Worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it implies that they used electrum tools to carve it.
Oh, I don't know about that. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. I don't know how you're going to carve granite with silver, gold, and whatever else is in it.
Right. Well, that's the question: is what is electrum? I mean, like I know that one of the possibilities is that it was an alloy of silver and gold.
Right.
But nobody really knows. Same with orichalcum. It's not really clear. I've seen also that is an alloy of gold and copper.
Right.
But nobody actually knows what this stuff was.
Right. Okay.
Like Greek fire. We know about it. They talk about it, but nobody knows how to make
Roman
it.
concrete, Greek fire. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Electrum and orichalcum. Yeah, these are mysterious materials from the ancient times.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about there's ongoing reconstruction at Karnak as well, and Luxor?
Yeah, I can't. It's difficult to make my mind about it. I in general, I'm like probably against a lot of it. I mean, the way that they're rebuilding those statues is...
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason why I don't think that it was a good idea to suggest that they were going to rebuild Menkaura's pyramid, because it's only going to be a facsimile of what it once was. It's not what it once was. I think you can let people use their imagination to imagine what it once was without putting an idea in their head about a vastly inferior facsimile of what it actually was. And you see that's been the result for a lot of the statue work that they're doing at Karnak and Luxor. I mean, it's so visibly in our modern work. I mean, look, not to take anything away from the sculptors and the artisans that are actually rebuilding these statues, and they're making them from concrete, right? And then they paint the concrete to make it look like granite. It's kind of a funny modern version of what I think is the imitation that happened in the early periods when they would imitate these granite vases, because you'd see this perfect, amazing granite vase, hardstone vase next to a pottery vase that's painted to look like granite. And it's funny because we're doing exactly the same thing now.
Yeah.
Except they're just making these, they're gluing together parts of the original thing with concrete, and then they're painting it to look like granite and putting dots on it, and it's exactly the same thing. And it just doesn't. You can see it. It's vastly inferior to the original stonework, but at the same time, I guess it's restoring a bit of the grandeur to the structure. On the negative side, again, is that they are taking away access to parts of those statues that you wouldn't have access to if they weren't on the ground already. Like there's the head that I talk about all the time, the one that Chris Dunn analysed that's out the front of the Luxor statue. That's now 30 feet up in the air on the top of a reconstructed concrete body. There was one of the better head jets inside the temple, this incredibly smooth, amazing head jet. In fact, I went and looked at some old Chris Dunn. I've been talking to him, some of his older photos of that temple. I mean, all of the head jets used to be in front of they would put the pieces of the statue in front of where the statue was, and whatever remnants of it was still standing, so you could go up and look at them and sort of play with the pieces. Now all these pieces have been kind of reassembled, and they're putting them back on this statue, and it's all stuck together with concrete. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but I'm generally like, I kind of wish they'd leave it alone and just document it and let us use our imagination.
Yeah, rebuild it on a computer.
There you
That'd
go.
be great.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and also the thing I worry about is that the construction efforts are so shoddy in a lot of cases that what most likely is going to happen is more destruction of the original statue because the head's going to fall again.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah.
You know, it's like the head was whole when it was on the ground, and they just put it 30 feet back up there, and the next time it falls because of the crappy concrete work, it's going to break.
That's right. And you have to look no further than around the Giza Plateau where they've been doing work and building stuff for decades now, and all that modern stuff is just falling apart. Like it takes
falling apart.
15, 20 years, and then it starts falling apart. And it's a joke Yusuf makes every time. It's like, look at this, look at this modern work, and it's literally in worse shape than the thousands of years old stuff, and it's only taken 20 years to get there.
Yeah. So the museum is a good alternative, to put things in the museum because then they're protected from the wind and sand erosion.
Yep.
And whatever chemical process is happening with this granite, I don't know what it is. I'm now pretty firmly believing that it's something to do with some kind of chemical process that's going on with the granite sitting in the sand,
Deep in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because it literally is just peeling away. So that's going to destroy the artifacts if they're sitting in sand, or if the sand's blowing up against them again. So I mean,
yeah, we found a section of obelisk in Karnak that had big glyphs all over it, and it was sitting up on this thing, and you could see that the glyphs themselves had been vastly eroded into in the similar way that we've seen on these other things.
But it's in the sand.
It had glyphs, and
the glyphs themselves,
are like just falling
Eroded.
apart.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was after they cut the glyphs that this erosion
happened.
began.
Yeah.
So it's and I was paying a lot more attention to that in a lot of cases where they have excavated an artifact, the underside that would have had contact with the ground, not wind and sand erosion, but would have been buried, is the most degraded.
Have you guys been to Memphis? I don't think you've been to Memphis, huh? We don't do that on Ancestors. We should get up there because they have that big. It's like a 150, 200 ton statue of the colossal Ramses laying on its back. It's in that room. You might have seen pictures of it.
Yeah, we haven't seen that one yet. I've seen pictures.
But it's the same thing. Like it's like where it was buried. It's very eroded, and then it's like there's like a part, like it's almost like a line you can trace. Either I think that's where it was buried, or maybe that was what was exposed. I'm not really sure, but one of those two. There's
pretty sure
definitely a different effect, either in or out of the ground. Probably the in ground, I guess.
I think it's in. I mean,
with granite in particular.
Yes.
Yeah. That made me reevaluate the
granite at Karnak.
And the statue of the head with the head jet on it in the Luxor Museum of what's his name? I can't remember the pharaoh's name. Yeah, right. The guy right in the front.
I think it's
one side of it is just like massively eroded. Yeah, and the other side is beautiful and polished. Right? And it's like that. It's the side that's eroded that was
in the ground.
In the ground. Yeah.
That's weird because it's like the reverse in places like Tiwanaku. Different material, andesite, maybe, and probably a different acidic or different soil, chemical composition. Because the stuff in places like Tiwanaku, it's like the stuff that was exposed is tremendously eroded, but it's whatever was in the ground, they stood it up, like that's been preserved.
But again, there's rainfall, all this stuff that they might be getting, like
different
this
from
is
Egypt. Yeah.
This is the argument they're making with the Sphinx as well, is that under the sand, it was getting heavily degraded by water getting into the sand with the stuff or whatever. That's what they're saying. But I've seen this effect on granite. I haven't seen it so much on limestone.
Yeah, I know. That's weird because
it is a granite.
You would think that it was the chemical composition of the limestone being dissolved and flowing with the water that's affecting the granite. Yeah. So like if you have a piece of limestone there, most likely it would just concrete onto the limestone.
Right.
Like you imagine it would build up on the limestone as opposed to wear it away.
It should accrete.
Accrete. Yeah. I mean, when Chuck talked about it, like he said, it's not acidic. It's whatever the soil is. It can't really be acidic because all the limestone would be gone.
Yeah.
So it's something else that's happening. Maybe it's just moisture in the granite. And this point gives me some fears for things like the labyrinth, which are, in the groundwater.
I know.
The ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's going to all look like this super eroded crap stuff, and you won't be able to tell what it was or if there's.
Oh, this is another thing. The Valley Temple and the Osirian, the upper parts of those pillars are in better condition than the lower.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
down at the lowest levels, they're flaking away, and
Right.
you look at the Valley Temple columns. I mean,
Yeah.
they're beautiful up top, and then as they get lower, where they were buried in sand, it's like they're just
Yeah.
There's
all crappy.
there's like big sections of some of those pillars in the Osirian that are just like they've set the exterior part is separated.
Yeah.
We saw it also on the
Like a 1/4 inch thick
Yeah.
slab of just peeling off of it.
the
Somehow.
the statue at the Ramesseum also has, you can see big like I don't know, like a skin. The part that's polished has been like almost separated
it's
from.
spalling off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big chunks of it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I broke one off of one of the Assyrian
Yeah,
pillars.
you
It
destroyed
like,
the Assyrian.
broke this ancient monument.
A little chunk comes off. Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, shit. Yeah. Yeah.
There's work going on at the Assyrian too. I mean, shit, we're out of time here, but there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, the Assyrian was cool. We got to some interesting spots on the Assyrian. I did a little video about
did.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you go to Ben's channel and check out his explorations in the Assyrian. He did on site.
Well, you guys did an epic number. You did a bunch of live streams there. We did one together. We did a chat together. But yeah, you guys did a whole bunch of live streams at. The different sites,
yes.
so.
So for those of you listening, and I know I've got some emails from some people asking like, "Where's the podcast? What happened? I know you went to Egypt. What happened?" So
We told you
yeah.
we would vanish to pyramids.
Right. But we published quite a bit of stuff. There's lots of live stream material on the YouTube channel. It didn't get into the podcast feed. So if you were missing stuff, you've got hours and hours and hours of Egypt content of us live streaming from there.
Yep.
So yeah, we did multiple museum streams. We did on-site streams at Karnak and Luxor and Giza, and yeah.
The soul's like following me
Soul
around.
following us around in the museum,
He's just
singing Mario the
Oh,
entire
really?
time.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Like, bro.
Please stop. Yeah.
We look at him. He's like, sorry. Dun, 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 dun.
That was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Trip of a lifetime. He doesn't know it yet, but that's quite an adventure for him. It was great.
Yeah. Well, fellas,
Yep.
shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Ben, and
Hey.
the trips were always awesome.
Hell yeah.
And we are already planning the next one,
Yep.
folks. So we're
Stay
definitely
tuned.
going again. Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah,
I think
I'll put a.
February is the time.
Yeah, I think that is the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great. I mean, the weather was fantastic for the most part.
Yep.
Nice and cool.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't do too much sweating.
Quite cool
All the
one
Egyptians
night.
think it's like ice cold. They're all wearing 3
Puffy
jackets.
jackets.
Yeah.
Scarves and gloves and things.
Yeah.
It's freezing.
Yeah.
It was good though. Yeah, the weather
Yeah, it
was
was great.
perfect.
Yeah.
So I'll put
All right.
I'll put a page up on my website about it. I'm going to do future tours. I'm getting tons of emails about people and people reaching out trying to get figure out when the next one is. I'm going to put at least a future intentions and ideas sort of thing. It's not committed or whatever, but at least the plans and what we're working on is going to go up there. But as I've told several people, if you really want to get on the tours, the best way you can join my Patreon or join the Snakes Patreon, because we always give Patreon members and supporters or YouTube channel members, etc., subscribe stuff for me and locals and stuff. All of those, anyone who's supporting the channel, we give them early access to register for these tours. They get to hear about it first, so. That's really the best way to do it.
Which is good because they fill up fast. Like this one.
Dude, was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once it went out to the public, I mean, this first trip was like 4 or 5 days gone.
Yep.
And then, it was nice we got to put on the second tour, because that second tour was made up almost exclusively of people that were like, God damn it, I couldn't quite, I missed the timing to get on the first tour, so they were happy we threw a second one on, which we only did because we had to cancel the trip to Lebanon, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
And then, but it all worked out.
We
in the
got to
end.
get out there eventually.
Yeah,
We do.
will.
Yeah, we will. But
There are other places to go as well.
There are.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're working on that too. So
we are. We have many plans, people. So stay tuned.
Yep.
Keep watching the Uncharted X channel and Brothers of the Serpent because we are going to be traveling the world and we want to take you guys with us because it's so awesome.
it is. Yeah. And it's a good time.
All right.
We do some jamming.
Yeah. Yes, and we'll always jam. Yeah. All right, Ben, thanks so much. You can, everybody knows where you are, unchartedx.com and on YouTube. Anything else?
Nope.
Definitely
Thank you guys.
support the show.
Great catching
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.
There it is.